Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was the bodyguard of Azula. Naruto is banished from Konoha, but gives them the slip and boards a ship. Soon after, he is shipwrecked on Ember Island and is saved by Azula. 3 years later, Naruto is Azula's bodyguard while she hunts for the Avatar, but did he see the last of Konoha? Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 45, Ass-Kicking and Restoring. Location, Wulong Forest. Ozai bent stream after stream of fire at the sphere that held Aang. Come on out, Avatar. He shouted at the sphere. You can't hide in there forever. Someone please help me. Aang silently begged as he held the sphere together. I can't do this. I need someone to stop him. Help me, anyone. But no one heard his calls. Location, Sokka and Toph. Among the ensuing chaos that was the remains of the fleet, Sokka and Toph ran to the back of the ship they were on. Toph, metal bend the rudder so it's jammed in a turning position. Sokka told her. The ship will spiral and slam into the others. Got it. She replied, moving him away from the rudder. She spat into her hands, rubbed them together, and then slammed them into the metal rudder. She bent the rudder into the turning position he wanted, making it slam into another ship. Have I ever mentioned how sweet it is that you invented metal bending? He asked. You could stand to mention it more. They smashed into a second ship. By that time, one of the soldiers had climbed to the top and saw them. He bent a large stream of fire and forced them run down the side. As gravity took hold and made them start to slide, Sokka pulled out his Zanpakuto and stabbed it into the balloon, trying to stop their fall. It didn't work. They fell off the side and he slammed into a platform. My leg. He cried in pain. Hang on, Toph. He told her. She was hanging in the air, holding to his hand. Aye, Captain, she replied. 2 soldiers ran onto the platforms on both sides. Sokka knew that if he only used his boomerang, he'd only hit one. As they took their stance, he reached for the boomerang and aligned his foot next to his sword. Just as they were about to shoot a fireball at them, he pulled out the boomerang and threw it at the one to his right, knocking him out. He then kicked his Jian up into the air and caught it. He then threw it at the other soldier, cutting the platform he was standing off and leaving him hanging in the air. Just as he thought the Zanpakuto would fall down to the ground below, a freak gust of wind came out of nowhere and sent it right back at him. He caught with ease. Don't ever do anything like that again, do you understand? Kuroga yelled at him. Sorry. He apologized. I'm sorry, Toph, but it doesn't look like Boomerang is coming back. He told her as he saw soldiers gather up in front of the platform. This might be the end. And as if to prove him wrong, the soldiers fled when they saw another ship come flying at them. The head crashed into the underside, allowing the 2 to fall down onto it. How did that happen? Toph asked Sokka as he clutched his leg in pain. Did Boomerang come back? No. He answered as he looked at who was riding next to the rudder. Suki did. Location, Wulong Forest. Ozai kept bending his fire at the sphere, trying to destroy it. He bent 2 fire streams at it, lifting it up into the air, and then threw a fireball at it, sending it rolling into a pillar. He leapt up into the air and kept the fire on as he landed closer to it. His stream of fire was large to reach the top of the pillar. Aang tried to hold the sphere together, but the raw heat and intensity of the fire was making it more and more difficult. Someone stop him. He thought to himself. He's going to kill me. I need someone to help me. Please, somebody. He couldn't do it. He could not fight the Fire Lord. When he knew the sphere was hot enough, Ozai leapt away from it. He raised his hand and bent the beginning of an intense fireball. He took a running start and leapt forward into the air. When he landed, he threw the fireball point-blank range at the sphere. It hit the thing and destroyed it. As the rocks protecting him broke away, Aang tried to defend himself with a shield of air. He was protected from the actual attack, but the force of it pushed him back. "Someone, please help me," he thought to himself as he slammed into the pillar. But something also happened. As he was slammed into the rock, a small jutting point was the first thing he felt as it hit his scar. His mind briefly flashed back to when he was hit by Yao Jing's lightning. He then saw in his mind the entire avatar line, every single avatar, male and female, from each of the 4 countries. Again and again, he saw the circle turn. Air, water, earth, and fire. Water, earth, fire, and air. Earth, fire, air, and water. Fire, air, water, and earth. The cycle kept repeating itself over and over again, each time taking a new form, and doing new things with their bending and the avatar state. Finally, he saw an image of the avatar state, floating in space. All the previous avatars surrounded it, their eyes glowed, and for the air nomads, so did their tattoos. "We are here," they told him in one voice. "We are yours. Come on out, little boy," Ozai said as he swaggered over to the rubble. "You're about to be." He was cut off when a hand shot out of the rubble and grabbed his goatee. Aang leapt out of the rubble, his glowing eyes and tattoos showing that he was in the avatar state. Ozai tried to bend fire at him with his hand in a chopping motion, but the avatar swatted it aside like it was nothing. He sent the Phoenix King flying back with a blast of air, hitting the ground a couple of times before slamming into his own pillar. He fell down to the ground and then looked up at the avatar, who was floating in the air, and was surrounded by a sphere of air. He opened his mouth and roared, breathing a jet of fire, as well as bending jets from his hands and feet. The jets destroyed nearby pillars as they condensed themselves into a ring. Big chunks of rock tore themselves up from the ground and flew up into the air, surrounding him. The nearby body of water raised a tendril and slowly extended it to him. He took it and bent it into a ring as well. Ozai looked at him with both surprise and fear. He wasn't just facing a little boy who didn't have the guts to kill. Now, he was facing the Avatar, who was using his complete powers while in the Avatar state. Location: Ba Sing Se. The battle had been turned to the favor of the White Lotus. While Piandao, Pakku and Zhong Zhong took care of the main forces, Bumi dealt with the forces on the outskirts. As he dug himself up from out of the ground, he was attacked by tanks. He immediately bent a wall from the ground, strong enough to withstand the fire blasts. He bent back down into the ground and bent up several rocks up out of the pavement. He threw the rocks into the holes where the fire was bent from, blocking them completely. He then bent the ground underneath the tanks to shoot up and send them flying. They landed in a stack. The soldiers opened the hatches that would open so they could try to get free, groaning as they did. While all of this went on, Iroh stood in front of the royal palace. He looked at the flag of the Fire Nation hung from the roof. Raising 2 fingers, he bent a small stream of fire at the flag, setting it ablaze. He watched in silence as the flag burned away, revealing the insignia of the Earth Kingdom. Location: Wulong Forest. Aang swooped down at Ozai, slamming into him with his air sphere. He then sent him flying with another blast of air. As he was airborne, the Phoenix King began to fly with help from his fire bending and flew away from his enemy. Realizing what he was doing, Aang flew higher into the air. He bent one of the rocks that surrounded him into little bullet-like shapes and fired them at his opponent. They covered a wide area and destroyed some of the pillars, but Ozai flew out of range. Without any hesitation, he followed. Location: Fire Nation capital. Katara was stunned at what she had seen. Both Zuko and Azula had been incapacitated, Zuko by electrocution and Azula by being knocked unconscious. When she saw Zuko try to move, she rushed over to help him. But she was blocked by a blast of fire from Yao Jing. The now mad princess was cackling with glee as she fired a round of lightning at her. She rolled off to the side and kept moving, dodging a fire blast. Please, don't try to heal them, Yao Jing told her as she landed on the roof and started generating lightning. Just let them die. She threw the lighting at Katara, who bent water from a nearby pool to block it. She bent one fireball after another at the waterbender, making her run behind a nearby column for protection. The two of you don't look so good, she told Zuko and Azula. They couldn't say anything in reply. Katara peeked out from behind the column, but had to run to another one to avoid a round of lightning. She bent water from a nearby pool and threw it at the roof. But Yao Jing wasn't there. She jumped over the roof Katara was under and flew at her. She ran out and bent the water to freeze, becoming an ice ramp. She slid along it, barely avoiding the fireballs that melted the ice. She got off the ice to avoid a large stream of fire, taking a few running steps before tripping over a grate. After seeing the water in the grate and a nearby chain, she came up with a plan. There you are, little girl, Yao Jing said as she found Katara. She leapt forward and tried to bend fire at her. But she was prepared. She bent the water underneath them to rise up and freeze, covering the two of them. She then melted the water around her, allowing her to move. She took the chain she grabbed and bound Yao Jing's hands. She then chained her to the grate so she couldn't move, and then bent the ice to melt and fall back into the grate. After she got her breath back, she ran over to Azula. Azula, are you okay? She asked, gently shaking her. What? Azula asked as she slowly regained consciousness. As she did, she felt her entire back start to throb with a dull pain. Are you all right? The waterbender repeated herself. Yes, I'm fine. What about Zuko? She turned to see that Zuko hadn't moved from where he laid. She hurried over to him and rolled him over, looking at the wound. Bending the water from her pouch onto her hands, she healed his wounds. The pain lessened and he opened his eyes. Thank you, Katara. Katara, he told her quietly. I think I'm the one who should be thanking you, she replied as she helped him stand up. Honestly, you are such a dum-dum, Azula told him as she walked over to them. You had jump in front of the lightning. Sorry, I just moved. I figured. Even though the words were spoken with sarcasm, the genuine smile on her face showed how relieved she was to see her brother up and moving. What will you do with her? Katara asked, looking at Yao Jing, who was struggling against the chain. We kill her, Azula instantly stated, covering her fist in blue fire. What? You can't do that. Why not? After all she's done, she deserves to die. But if you kill her now, then you're no better than Ozai, Katara told her. Then what do you suggest? We leave her alone? If they did that, her bastard sister was probably likely to try and stage a revolt against them. Azula, she's still our sister, Zuko told her. She deserves a chance, just like us. No, she doesn't, she growled. You should remember what she did to torment us when we were kids. They had been terrified of her all those years, and it only got worse once their mother had left. But she still deserves a chance. If we hadn't gotten our chance, where do you think we would be right now? Fine, you have a point, she conceded, letting the blue fire she was wielding dissipate. They're going to show me mercy after what they've done to me? Yao Jing thought to herself. They've taken what's rightfully mine and they think I need a second chance. With a scream of insanity, she surprised them by bending her fire to melt the chains. Do you think I'll take this lying down? She demanded. The title of Fire Lord is mine. Why did father change his mind? He gave it to me. She ran off, screaming, Why did you do it, father? Yao Jing, wait, Zuko shouted. They tried to go after her, but they were too tried and she remained ahead of them. But they were close enough to see her try to climb over the edge of the mountain, only to stumble, and fall down the other side, disappearing from sight. By the spirits, Katara whispered in horror as they listened to the sounds of her hitting the mountainside repeatedly with screams of pain fade away. Both Zuko and Azula agreed with her. Not even Yao Jing deserved that kind of slow painful death. She lay at the bottom of the mountain, her body all but broken from the fall. She could feel her life fading away. I can't die here. I have to take back what's mine. She tried to stand up, only to fall back down. Chun's photo flew out of her pocket when she fell and flapped around in the air. I can't die here like a filthy commoner. Her eyes centered on the picture as it landed down in front of her. I don't want to die. She grabbed the picture and looked at it. Save me, please. She begged, her voice taking on a childish tone. Please, Mommy, I don't want to die alone. Save me. She heard a chuckle in the air. How amusing, the voice from her dreams said. You told me that you would defeat your siblings with ease. And now, you wallow in the dirt, asking the picture of a dead woman to save you. I don't want to die. Oh, hush. You're not going to die. I told you before. The ground beneath her turned into a circle of energy, becoming a portal. A deal's a deal. She fell through the portal, clutching Chun's picture to her chest. Location, Naruto. As the pike sailed towards his stomach, he suddenly reached out and grabbed the shaft. He yanked forward and then rammed into the soldier's face, breaking his nose. That was a little close. He thought to himself as he quickly got back up, taking holding of the pike. He had lost his Jian during the fighting and used the scabbard to attack, only to have it cut in half. Are you the one who needs to rest his bones? Jiraiya asked him, half sarcastic and half relieved. Oh, shut up and keep fighting. He replied as he brained a soldier. What do I think was doing? Picking up women? He asked as he kneed his opponent in the stomach. You do have a tendency to do that. Not in the middle of a fight, I don't. There was a time and place for such things, and now was neither the time nor the place. Could have fooled me, he replied as he swept the legs out from under a soldier using the pike. Location, Wulong Forest. Ozai tried to keep his distance between him and the Avatar. As he flew through the forest of pillars, two of them suddenly broke apart and slammed together in front of him. He was forced to stop and turn, but that was all Aang needed. He bent water from nearby to hit Ozai with a deluge, forcing him to land. As he looked up, he saw Aang smash through the pillar behind him and fly down towards him. He backed away from the pillar and leapt backwards, taking flight again, while also bending a stream of fire at his opponent, who simply flew through it and smashed into the ground. He flew through the air and landed on the top of a pillar. He swung his foot, bending an arc of fire, and directed it at him. He blocked the fire by bending to pillar to break away and form a shield in front of him. He moved them away and then bent 5 fireballs at the Phoenix King, seeking him out. He dodged them and flew off to gain more distance between them. He landed against the side of a pillar and bent 3 streams of fire at him. He, in turn, bent 3 small water missiles and a blast of air. The three missiles hit the fire streams and made them implode while the air blast was directed at Ozai. He got struck by hit and was sent flying, but recovered. The air blast whittled away the pillar until it had no choice but to fall. Aang continued to chase him, not caring if he smashed through a pillar or not. When Ozai looked back and saw that he was gaining on him, he panicked and tried to speed up. But Aang wasn't going to let that happen. He bent the water he had forward and extinguished the fire the Phoenix King he was using before grabbing him and slamming him into a pillar. As he lay on the pillar, Aang hovered over him and bent the stone to rise up and enclose his hands and feet. Fire Lord Ozai, he said, the voices of previous avatars overlapping his, making him sound like a legion contained inside one person. You and your forefathers have devastated the balance of these countries, and now you shall pay the ultimate price. As a terrified Ozai watched, he bent the 4 elements up into the air, forming a lance, and swinging it back down to him, fully intent on ending his life. The Phoenix King closed his eyes and looked away. But at the last moment, the intent and will behind the lance disappeared. The air and fire disappeared and the water splashed him, while the rocks just fell around him. He opened his eyes and saw Aang forcing himself out of the avatar state. As he slowly descended, he released Ozai from the stone and landed with his back turned. "No, I'm not gonna end it like this," he said. Even with all the power in the world, Ozai said angrily while on his knees. "You are still weak." He lunged forward to attack him, but he made one simple mistake. He had placed his hand down on the ground and the avatar sensed him through the earth. Without even turning around, he bent the stone beneath them to rise up and grabbed hold of Ozai's fist, making his fireball go wide. He moved to the other side and bent the stone to hold the other hand as well. He then stood in front of him and bent the bindings down to the stone, taking his hands with him. The Phoenix King tried to breathe fire at him for one last attempt, but he shielded himself with. He walked forward and placed his hands on Ozai's head and his chest. As he took a deep breath and closed his eyes, the lion turtle's words came back to him. "In the era before the Avatar, we bent not the elements, but the energy within ourselves." He raised his head up and opened his eyes. Beams of blue light shot forth from his eyes and his mouth. A moment after those appeared, red beams emerged from Ozai's eyes and mouth. Both of their bodies became encased in the energy, blue for Aang, red for Ozai. The lights from each shone brightly in the air, reaching so high into the sky many people from far away could see them. As Aang struggled against Ozai, he remembered the rest of what the lion turtle said. "To bend another's energy, your own spirit must be unbendable, or you will be corrupted and destroyed." Slowly, the red energy from Ozai began to crawl over Aang, encasing his body. The right light began to chase away the blue, leaving a single ray that was getting smaller and smaller. Just as the red energy fully encased him, many voices inside of him roared as one. "No. We will not bend," they declared. Finding the strength to push back, Aang strengthened his own spirit and then rammed it against Ozai's. The red quickly fled as the blue fully engulfed the two of them, shining a bright blue light into the air for all to see and sending a powerful beam up into the heavens. The lights and energy disappeared and both stumbled back from exhaustion. Aang remained on his feet while Ozai collapsed onto his back, his bindings broken. He tried to bend fire at the Avatar, but nothing came forth from his hands. What did you do to me?" he asked. "I took away your fire bending," Aang told him. "You can't use it to hurt or threaten anyone else ever again." He walked to the edge of the pillar and looked down at the destruction before him. He took a deep breath as his tattoos and eyes briefly glowed. He gently raised his hands and bent the ocean to rise up and flood the forest. It extinguished all the fires and grabbed hold of the airship fleet wreckage. Once all was done, he bent the ocean back down to what it was before, taking the ships with it. As he stood over what he had done, Momo flew back to him and landed on his shoulder. Location: Naruto. They had all stopped when they saw the lights appear in the sky. When he saw the blue beam of light go straight into the sky, he knew what that meant. "Jiraiya, do me a favor," he said. "What's that, Gaki?" the Toad Sage asked him. "Bring down the house." He grinned. As he leapt into the air, he bit his thumb and flashed through hand seals. "Kuchios, Yatai Kazushi no Jutsu, summoning, food cart destroyer jutsu," he cried out. A big cloud of smoke appeared and out of that cloud, a big toad whose skin color was aquamarine and carried two katanas on his back, crashed into the ground next to the army. To say the army was shocked and stunned at what they saw would have been an understatement. "All right, listen up," Naruto shouted, getting their attention. "You all saw the lights. They were coming from Wulong Forest. That was where Ozai had planned to strike first. I'm guessing the Avatar fought him and won. So now you have a choice. You can either try to follow your orders and end being shish kebabs for a toad. Or you can surrender and live. What will it be? The soldiers all looked at each other, then at the toad, and then at him. We surrender to you, Lord Naruto. One of the soldiers said as they knelt to the ground and raised their hands over their heads. He smiled at those words. I was hoping you'd say that. Location, Wulong Forest. As the comet flew overhead, the airship Sokka and his team had commandeered landed next to the pillar Aang and Ozai were on. Way to go, Aang. Sokka told him as he walked onto the pillar with the help of Suki and Toph. That was one heck of a fight. Suki walked over to the prone form of Ozai. So did you finish the job? She asked Aang. I'm still alive. Ozai growled weakly at her, making her back away. I learned there was another way to defeat him and restore balance. Aang explained. I took away his bending. Wow. Toph said in surprise. Who taught you that? A giant lion turtle, he answered. You have the craziest adventures when you disappear. Sokka hopped over to Ozai. So you didn't kill him? He repeated. I couldn't do it. Aang told him. All life was sacred, even such a life as Ozai. You do realize that Naruto will probably chew you out for this, right? The tribesman asked him. I will worry about that when I get there. He turned his attention back to Ozai. Not so high and mighty now. He said. You're not much without your fire bending, are you? I am the Phoenix King. Ozai snapped at him before falling forward in unconsciousness. Oh sorry, didn't mean to offend you, Phoenix King of getting his butt hooped. Toph said mockingly. Yeah, or how about the king of the guys who don't win? Said Suki rather pathetically. You're going to have to work on that. Sokka told her. But for now, leave the nicknames to us. Toph said. As they stood there, Sozin's comet disappeared into the horizon. There was a brief light as it disappeared. Then it was gone and all that remained was the night before the dawn. Location, Fire Nation capital. It had been a week since the battle at Wulong Forest. The royal city still had buildings that had been destroyed by the Agni Kai, but was still packed nonetheless. The reason for this was because peace was to be declared and a new Fire Lord was to be crowned. Inside the palace, Zuko struggled to put on his clothes. It was hard, due to the pain his wounds gave him. You need some help with that? A familiar voice asked him. He turned around to see who it was. You're okay. He said happily as she walked over. They let you out of prison? My uncle pulled some strings. She answered as she helped him into his clothes. And it doesn't hurt when the new Fire Lord is your boyfriend. So does this mean you don't hate me anymore? He asked hopefully. I think it means, I actually kind of like you. She said while blushing. The two of them shared a kiss. But don't ever break up with me again. She told him, poking his shoulder to emphasize her point. He grinned nervously and nodded in agreement. They pulled each other into a hug after that. In the plaza, people were talking to other people and meeting new ones. The members of the invasion force who had been taken prisoner had been freed and were now among the crowd. Katara and Sokka were making their way through the crowd. Looking for someone, Sokka was using a crutch due to his sprained leg. Dad! Cried the two of them when they saw Hakoda. They ran over to him and engulfed him in a group hug. I heard what you two did. He told them. I am the proudest father in the world. And your mother would have been proud too. He told Katara, who cried a few tears of joy at the thought of that. Hearing footsteps, Sokka looked at where they were coming from and saw Suki in full gear along with the rest of the Kyoshi warriors. There are my favorite warriors. He said in greeting. I have to admit, I kind of missed the face paint. So how does it feel to be back in uniform again? he asked. It feels great, Ty Lee said, appearing from behind Suki, wearing the full gear of the Kyoshi warriors. I'm not the only one seeing this, right? He asked. Akela padded over to her and sniffed her. He patted and nodded. That was Sokka needed to know that was indeed Ty Lee. It is okay, Sokka, she's one of us now. Suki told him. Yeah, the girls and I really bonded in prison. Ty Lee explained. And after a few chi-blocking lessons, they said I could join their group. We're going to be best friends forever. She hugged two of the warriors and all three of them wore big grins. Hey, where are Naruto and Azula? Katara asked, looking around. I'm right here. Azula said as she and Jiraiya joined them. So, these are the Kyoshi warriors that you lead, Suki. Jiraiya said as he eyed them. I must say, those uniforms make you all look quite fetching. Before anyone could say anything or do anything, a kunai flew through the crowd and struck the ground between his legs. He bent over and picked it up. Pulling the piece of paper that was attached off, he read it. Please remember you're in public, pervert. Naruto. He is good. Sokka said after he read the note aloud. I am not a pervert. Jiraiya protested. Another kunai struck the ground between his legs. The piece of paper attached to it read. Super pervert, I know. You're still in public. Also, they're younger than 16. Naruto. How does he keep doing that? Demanded Ty Lee. I told you already. Azula said. You are never going to find out. Zuko walked down the room to the curtained exit. On one side of the exit sat Aang, dressed in formal robes and wearing a wooden medallion with Air Nomad symbol engraved on it. On the other side of the exit was Naruto, who was leaning against the wall. I can't believe a year ago my purpose in life was hunting you down. Zuko told Aang. And now we're friends. He replied. Yeah, we are friends. I can't believe a year ago I was still frozen in a block of ice. He said as he stood up. Well, I can still believe that you're an idiot. Naruto told him. The blonde had changed out of the prison uniform he had been wearing since Konoha. Now he wore white pants that were tucked into his sandals with a shuriken holster strapped on his right leg, and a long-sleeved black jacket. Cloth was wrapped around his waist and from that cloth hung a white half-skirt with black flames at the bottom. It stopped just below his left knee. Since he lost his Jian in the midst of battle, he finally gave up on the weapon, and never bothered to look for it. What's that supposed to mean? Aang asked him. You should have killed Ozai. I couldn't. And with energy bending, I didn't have to. With his fire bending gone, Ozai isn't a threat to anyone. Ozai had more than just fire bending. It would have been simpler to kill him. Why are you so mad at me for not taking his life? He asked the fire paragon. Because you need to learn the lesson that comes with it, he told him. What are you talking about? What lesson is there that you learn from killing? You learn how not to kill. But I learned that from the monks. He protested. Naruto shook his head. No, they taught you how to dodge, evade, and defend. They did not teach you how not to kill. He had learned the lesson on the battlefield. But you can explain to me, right? You've already told me what the lesson is. It's not something you can explain. It's only something you will learn once you stand over a person who you killed. There will come a time that you will have to kill Aang, and I can only hope that you will learn the lesson well. I will never kill. He vowed. I will not take someone's life from them. He scoffed. You are still naive. That's enough. Zuko said, stopping the argument. Naruto, you didn't come here to get into an argument with Aang. Have the soldiers I sent out come back? Yes. What did they say? That there's no single piece of evidence of Yao Jing being there. No pools of blood, no trails where she might have tried to drag herself to. And there was no evidence of another party taking her away. Are you sure? He asked, wanting to be certain. I had the Yuyan archers look over the scene to double-check. They told me the same thing. For all intents and purposes, it looked like Yao Jing simply disappeared. He sighed. I hope this doesn't come back to haunt us. If it does, we'll take care of it then. But right now, the two of you have a ceremony and a speech to do. You'd better get going. Both Aang and Zuko nodded in agreement. They walked through the curtain and after a few moments, Naruto followed. The crowd stood in organized groups as they waited. One of the fire sages rang a gong as Zuko stepped out into the open. As soon as they saw him, the crowd began to cheer. Please, he said, raising his hand to silence them. The real hero is the Avatar. He stepped to the side and allowed Aang to walk forward. The crowd began to cheer loudly when they saw him, but he only had eyes for a certain female waterbender who had the same for him. Today, this war is finally over. Zuko declared as he stood side by side to Aang, making the crowd cheer even louder. I promised my uncle that I would restore the honor of the Fire Nation. And I will. The road ahead of us is challenging. 100 years of fighting has left these countries scarred and divided. But with the Avatar's help, we can get it back on the right path and begin a new era of love and peace. He knelt down to his knees. The head sage began to walk forward, only to be stopped by Naruto, who whispered something in his ear. He nodded in agreement and gave the headpiece of the Fire Lord to him. He walked up behind the kneeling Zuko and raised the headpiece, his medallion out for everyone to see and to know who he was. All hail Fire Lord Zuko! He declared in an authoritative voice, placing the headpiece of the Fire Lord in Zuko's top knot. He stood up as the crowd began to cheer again. He walked forward, only to stop, look back at Aang and gestured for him to join him. They stood at the edge of the stairs, listening to the cheering people. Later, when the ceremony was over, Zuko made his way to the royal prison. He walked into the prison and made his way to a cell. He opened the door and walked in, staring at the prisoner in the cage. I should count myself lucky, Ozai said sarcastically as he took notice of Zuko. The new Fire Lord has graced me with his presence in my lowly prison cell. You should count yourself lucky that the Avatar spared your life. We both know if it had been Naruto or anyone else, you wouldn't be here. Zuko told him, making him scoff. Banishing me was the best thing you could have done for my life. It put me on the right path. Perhaps your time in here will do the same for you. Why are you really here? Are you going to demand I tell you where your mother is? No. Naruto took both me and Azula to see her. We know she's alive and that's enough for now. Then why are you here? Yao Jing is dead, he said. What? Ozai asked, shock and grief evident in his voice. You hurt me. She's dead. He turned around and walked back to the door. Goodbye, father, he said before closing the door behind him and walking away. Chapter 46, Truth and History. Location, Ba Sing Se. A week after Zuko's coronation, the team was in Ba Sing Se. The entire week had celebration after celebration and now, it was back to business. But first, they were enjoying a cup of tea at the Jasmine Dragon. I win, Iroh declared as he and Jiraiya sat in front of a pie show table. Damn, and here I thought I was doing well. Jiraiya groused from the other side of the table. This had been the fourth game so far and despite being proud of the fact that he was a quick study, he was still losing. Don't worry about it, FS Sensei, Zuko told him from a nearby table, cup in hand. I don't think there is anyone in the world that can beat Uncle at Pie Show. First of all, don't call me that, he said. Second of all, somebody will beat him one of these days. Then I have something to look forward to, Iroh said with a laugh. Hey Aang, have you heard? Sokka asked the Avatar from where he was sitting next to Suki. Apparently, you have a fan club. We know. We met them while you and Suki were out sparring. Katara said shortly. She and Aang were sitting next to one another at the next table over. I thought they were nice. Aang said. They were going to show us the clubhouse, but we were supposed to come here right away. They kept gushing over you, Twinkle Toes. Toph said, completely and obvious annoyed by what she saw. I honestly thought I was going to puke after talking to them for 5 minutes. Looks like somebody's got fangirls. Sokka said in a sing-song voice. Don't even joke about that. Jiraiya told him with complete seriousness, turning away from the pie show table. There's no need to worry just yet. Naruto said as he sat next to the open door with his book in front of him and a cigarette in his mouth. Those weren't fangirls. Not yet anyways. Are you sure? Toph asked the blonde. They seemed like fangirls to me. Trust me, they were not fangirls. A fangirl will scream at a pitch that will make a dog go deaf whenever they see you, stalk you relentless if they ever find you, knows everything about you, has a network of spies watching your every move, is able to track you by pheromone, has a giant painting and or picture of you in their room, and most important of all, will try and rape you at every chance they get. Those who were not used to fangirls in the room looked at him. You're not kidding, are you? Sokka asked him. No, he's not. Azula said. She had seen enough of his fangirls to last her a lifetime. How would you know? You don't have any fangirls. No, but I have fanboys. Everyone, except for Naruto, fell silent at that. Fangirls were bad enough, but fanboys. It was too disturbing to even actually think about it. And the number of fanboys you have will probably go up soon. Naruto remarked. So will the number of fangirls you have. She retorted. Can we please talk about something else now? Jiraiya asked. As if to answer his prayer, a messenger arrived at the entrance. Avatar Aang, the Earth King is ready to meet with you. He announced. Location, Royal Palace. They stood in the throne room of the Earth King, all easy stances and big smiles on their faces. Hello again, Avatar, the Earth King greeted him. Hello, Earth King K. Aang greeted in return. And welcome everyone. He said to the rest of the group. It was obvious that he was happy to see them, and it looked like Bosco was happy too. Have you been doing well, Your Majesty? Azula asked him. Why yes, I have. He answered. He knew that the Princess of the Fire Nation was now on the Avatar's side, but he couldn't help remember how she managed to hold him at flame point when she was taking over Ba Sing Se. Naruto laughed when he saw the expression on the Earth King's face. Don't worry, Kay, she's not going to hold you at flame point again. He told him. I hope you will forgive me if I find that a little hard to believe. No offense taken. People, let's focus on the meeting here. Sokka said. They weren't here to pass the time shooting the breeze. Sokka's right. Katara agreed. Then let's discuss how we're going to remove the colonies. Aang declared. What in Agni's name are you talking about? Azula asked, looking at him with surprise in her eyes. Those colonies are staying. They can't stay, Azula. The 4 countries must remain separate. He made it sound like it was the most obvious thing on this side of the planet. The colonies are a part of why the war happened. That may be, but they don't need to suffer for it. Did you know about this? She asked Zuko, swinging around to look at her brother. Yes, I did. Those are your people now, Zuko. Why would you let this happen to them? You're making sound like we're going to be killing the people there. Kay protested. They weren't going to do anything of the sort. Azula, we're planning on having the colonists come back to the Fire Nation, that's all. Katara explained to her. And by doing that, you're destroying their lives. She retorted, getting angrier as the minutes passed. We're not destroying anything. Suki protested. It was just a peaceful relocation. That was it. The balance has to be restored, Azula. Aang told her. The only way we can do that is remove the colonies from the Earth Kingdom. That was the balance before the war. Things are different now. She replied. They didn't have to go back to the way things were. Fire Lord Zuko, will you not say anything? Kay asked him. I am not certain of what to say. He answered after a moment of silence. I want to see the balance restore as much as Aang does. But Azula does have a point when she says that lives will be destroyed if we go through with this. You have to choose, Zuko. Katara told him with a scowl forming on her face. Either you help us or you will turn against us. A rash decision here could lead to war again, Katara. He replied. This is not an easy choice. Yes, it is. Aang said. Either you help us remove the colonies or not. Either way, they will be removed. Aang, what about a compromise? Offered Sokka. We only remove the more recent colonies and keep the older ones under supervision. The 4 countries must remain separate, Sokka. The Avatar said stubbornly. That's the only way harmony will be created. You don't know that. Neither do you. Those colonies have to go. He shouted. Tensions were beginning to raise around the group, and it looked like blows were about to be thrown. They all heard a large clapping noise. Okay, everyone pay attention. Jiraiya ordered. If this keeps going, you will all soon start fighting. He turned his attention to the Earth King. Is there anything this meeting was about, Your Majesty? No, this was the most pressing issue. He answered. Then I suggest we meet again tomorrow afternoon. That will give everyone here some time to cool their heads. But it has to be settled now. Katara protested. If you try to settle it now, you'll end up fighting with each other, and that can lead to another war. Take a breather. He ordered. Everyone could feel the intense mood hanging over their heads. If anyone said the wrong thing, the entire meeting would erupt into a battleground. Lord Jiraiya is correct. Zuko finally said. We will reconvene here tomorrow afternoon. That will give us time to think things over. I agree with Fire Lord Zuko. Kay agreed. We will meet tomorrow. He stood up from his chair. Good day, everyone, he told them before walking away, Bosco right behind him. Location, Team Avatar House. I can't believe Zuko would consider leaving the colonies alone. Aang groused as they sat around the house. Zuko, Azula, Jiraiya, and Naruto had all gone back to the Jasmine Dragon for the night, figuring that some separation would help. He is trying to be a good leader, Aang. Sokka pointed out to him. And that means looking out for the people you lead. We were trying to help those people, Sokka. Katara told him. Azula just egged him on. She thought she was doing the right thing. Suki said in defense of Azula. It's a Fire Nation colony, Suki. That means the majority of the people there are from the Fire Nation. Aang said. And those people belonged in the Fire Nation. And what about the people who are from the Earth Kingdom? Asked Toph. What about them? Aren't we going to be hurting them by taking away the colonies? How could we possibly be hurting them? He asked the blind Earthbender. We'll be making their lives better by removing the colonists. And what if trade had been better because of the colonists? Sokka said to him. What if in removing the Fire Nation from the colonies, we do more harm than good to them? Why are you like this, Sokka? Katara asked her brother. I thought you would have been for the removing of the colonies. It's not that simple. We have to consider what the people there think. If they didn't, odds were they were going to have problems on their hands. What's there to consider? We'd be doing the Earth Kingdom people there a favor by bringing the colonists back to the Fire Nation. The air nomad among them declared. Aang, the last time we dealt with a Fire Nation colony, you went in full steam without thinking that something might have been wrong with the colonel or what the colonists had thought about the whole thing. The water paragon reminded him. And because of that, the massacre on the bridge happened. Everyone fell silent at that point. Sokka had a point there. The last time something had happened to them, it would have been thoroughly and utterly botched had it not been for Naruto and the 2 members of Akatsuki. They knew they had to be careful about this. But they also wanted the colonies to be gone. To Aang and Katara, they seemed like an old scar left over from the war. As they tried to think it over, they heard knocking on the front door. "Who's that?" Katara asked. "Don't worry, it's not an enemy," Toph told her, already knowing who was out there. Suki stood up and walked over to the door. She opened it and saw that it was a Dai Li agent. "Lady Suki, I am Yen, head of the Dai Li." He greeted her, bowing his head. You know who I am?" she asked, surprised. "Yes, Lord Naruto made sure to inform us of the paragon of the Earth Kingdom currently was." "What are you doing here?" Sokka asked, getting up from where he sat and walking over to the door. "I was ordered to escort you and your group, Lord Sokka. There is someone who wishes to meet you." He took a step back away from the door. "If you will all follow me." They shared a look with each other, and then silently agreed to go with him. They walked out of the house and down the streets. "I have a question, Yen," Suki said as they made their way through the night. The streets now were silent and empty, save for them. But she knew that if they left the upper ring, it would not be so. "What is that, ma'am?" he asked. "Why is it that you know who I am? Are the paragons important to the Dai Li? Since our creation, the Dai Li have been loyal to the 4 paragons. But the Earth Paragon is the only one to have full command of us. We will obey your every command." Thank you." "You're welcome, ma'am." They continued the walk in silence as they made their way into the business district of the upper ring. "Where are we going?" Aang asked as they kept walking, looking around and the quiet and empty buildings. "You'll see soon enough, sir." He stopped walking and looked at the building in front of them. "As a matter of fact, we're already there." They all stopped and looked at the building as well. "Isn't this the old Badger Mole?" Sokka asked, looking at the restaurant. "Yes, it is, Sokka," Naruto's voice answered. They turned around and saw him along with Zuko, Azula, and Jiraiya, along with someone else. "What in the name of the spirits are you doing here?" Toph demanded of the 5th person, completely caught off guard. She had never thought to see him here of all places. The boulder would be pleased to see the blind bandit again, if it was under different circumstances. The boulder said. "Must you sound like that, Huan?" Yen asked him with annoyance in his voice. "You are not in the ring, at least try to sound intelligent." "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Head of the Dai Li. So, I should sound like a bootlicker, is that it?" He replied, losing the 3rd person speaking. "I am not a bootlicker and we both know it. There are times where you could have fooled me. I take it the 2 of you know each other." Azula asked the 2 of them. "We're brothers," Yen answered. That was something none of them had expected to hear. "What? But the 2 of you look nothing alike," Aang protested. "I take after our father, he takes after our mother," the boulder explained. "I'm sure that is all fascinating. But what are we doing here?" Jiraiya asked. The boulder, Huan, said that someone wanted to see us. Yen said the same thing, actually. Katara said. "What's going on here, you two?" Naruto asked them. "All will be explained soon enough." For now, please just follow us, Juan said. The brothers walked into the restaurant and the others followed. They walked quietly through the empty building. Funny, I'd thought this place would have opened right now, Zuko noted. It's been closed for the night by the owner. Officially, it's due to small repairs, the Dai Li agent said to him. And the unofficial reason is, no one else needs to see what's going on right now, Yen answered. It's the best way to maintain silence. They walked into the kitchen, where they were met by another person. So, these are them, huh? He asked gruffly. Yes, Uncle Tai, Juan answered. Who is this? Azula asked, looking at the older man. That would be the head cook of the old badger mole, Naruto answered, instantly recognizing him. Is he awake? Yen asked his uncle. Of course he is. Now get moving. He clenched his fist and waved it. The cabinet behind him, which was completely made of metal, moved to the side, revealing a descending stairwell. Did he just metal bend? Katara asked in stunned wonder as she looked at the stairs. Juan shook his head. No, the cabinet is attached to a thin wall of earth. He bent that to move it. Naruto frowned at those words. So, I guess that you just have really good aim with your frying pan then, he said to Tai. Of course I do, I'm a cook. Now get going, he's expecting you. He waved his hand, motioning them to keep walking. Who is expecting us? Aang asked. You'll find out soon enough, he said shortly. Both Yen and Juan walked down the stairs and they followed, leaving the cook in the kitchen. The corridor was mostly dark, save for only the barest of illuminating crystals embedded in the walls. As they went deeper, they began to feel chiller. Hey, Zuko, Azula, how about a little fire here please? Asked Sokka. He could barely see where he was going, and it made him nervous. Don't do that, you won't need it soon, Juan told them. How soon is soon? Suki asked. She was just as nervous as Sokka. Now, Yen answered. They hit the bottom step and walked through an opening into a craven. Hey, I know where we are, Katara said, looking around and seeing familiar things. We're in Old Ba Sing Se. Why would we be down here? Aang asked. Naruto looked over at Yen. This is not the same way you took me through before, he replied, having already figured where they were going, and who wanted to see them. We have many entrances into Old Ba Sing Se, the Dai Li agent answered shortly. So I see. You know what's going on, Naruto? Zuko asked the blonde. Yeah, I do. Yen took me down here back when I working in Ba Sing Se, he replied, keeping his eyes forward as they walked through the old city. So, what's going on? Katara asked. Can't tell you, you'll find out soon enough anyways, he answered before turning to look at the head of the Dai Li, lead the way. He nodded and walked on, Juan beside him, and the rest following them. They walked deeper into the caverns of Old Ba Sing Se until they finally reached a wall. The two brothers stepped forward and punched the wall. A crack appeared and shot upwards. Once it had reached a certain height, it split in half and went sideways before traveling downwards. After the cracks had touched the ground, the one in middle opened. The cracked area began to move backwards, like a door opening itself, until there was an opening in the wall. This is a place known only to our family, Yen told them. Not even Long Feng knew of this place. If he did, his life would have been forfeit. Is that you there, Yen? A voice from beyond the opening asked. It sounded old and gravelly, like it belonged to someone ancient. Yes. Juan is here as well, he answered the voice. Are the Avatar and his friends here as well? They are right here. Then send them in. Juan looked at them. You all go inside. My brother and I will stay out here. They walked hesitantly through the opening. Once they were through, crystals embedded in the wall began to glow, showing what was in front of them. They saw what looked to be a big living room. Couches surrounded a hearth that was ablaze with green fire, covered in soft-looking blankets and pillows. Sitting close to the fire was an old man. He wore a loose-fitting robe and his beard was long and white, as was his hair. "Don't just stand over there," he told them. "Come in and sit down." They did so, some more readily than others. Sir, who are you exactly?" Aang asked the man. Naruto chuckled. "I thought you of all people would know who he is, Aang," he said. "That's not fair to him, Naruto. He has never met me." The old man reprimanded him. "Technically speaking, he has," he said with a small grin on his face. "You know very well that is not what I meant. Could you please just tell me who you are, sir?" Aang asked him, now burning with curiosity. "My name, young Avatar, is Sud." He went rimrod stiff at that name. "You mean you're?" he asked, leaving the question hanging in the air. "Yes, I was." "Just who is this old guy anyway?" Toph asked, confused and a little annoyed by not knowing. "Meet your predecessor, Toph," Naruto said to her as a way of introduction. Sud was the earth-bending teacher to Roku. Everyone who didn't know that was surprised by it. "But how is he still alive?" Suki asked. "He must be well over 100. I ate my vegetables when I was younger, and I got plenty of sleep." Sud answered in a half-joking manner. "Why did you summon us?" Azula asked him. This wasn't just a social call, she figured out that much. He looked at her. "Straight to the point, I see. You've been hiding down here for more than a century. You could have talked to Aang before today, and yet, you didn't. I asked for all of you to come here, because Yin told me about the meeting you had with the Earth King." "Are Yin and Huan your servants?" Katara asked. "No." "Then what are they?" Zuko asked. "They are to me what you and Azula are to Sozin," he answered cryptically. But the scarred dragon figured out what he meant by those words. "They're your great-grandchildren?" "I did just say that." "So, your great-grandchild told you about the meeting, huh?" Jiraiya asked. "Yes, and about the whole argument concerning the colonies. Surely you believe that the colonists need to leave, Sud," Aang said, thinking that Roku's earth-bending teacher would side with him. "Oh? You think so?" "Of course I do," he said with a big nod. "They were the main reason the war happened in the first place. And let me guess, you think the fault with starting the war lies Sozin, don't you?" the ancient man asked him. "Yes. It's common knowledge that Fire Lord Sozin caused the 100-Year War." "That's where you're wrong, boy," Sud told him with a sharp tone in his voice that hadn't been dulled by age. "What?" Aang asked, surprised by what he heard. The fault for starting the war was Sozin's, it was Roku's. Mostly everyone there was caught off guard by that simple statement. "What do you mean Roku caused the war?" Sokka asked. "Exactly that, he was to blame." Sud repeated himself. "That can't be true." "You're lying," Aang accused him. "Be careful who you insult, boy," he said, spitting out the last word like it was the most insulting thing out there. "I was there when it all happened. I know very well who caused it. But Roku said that you were a lifelong friend of his. How could you say that it was his fault?" The Avatar asked him, still not really believing what he was hearing. By the time Roku had died, he had lost the trust of many of his friends. "Hold on," Zuko said. "I remember reading Sozin's final testament along with Azula. He admitted to wiping out the air nomads and starting the war. That testament was doctored." Sud told him, frowning as he spoke. It was a little obvious that he didn't like that. "But how can that happen?" Azula asked him. Only the fire sages knew where the testaments were. Before the war, there was a group of people created by Avatar Kyoshi who were extremely loyal to her and to the Avatar. He explained. Officially, their objective was to record what the Avatar had done in his or her life. Unofficially, their mission was to track down and replace any documents that had put the Avatar in a bad light. They had even destroyed the original's documents, regardless of whether or not it was true. What happened to this group? Suki asked. She had never heard of them before. Following Roku's death, Sozin and I, along with Gyatso, had tracked down and killed all the members of the group. But by the time I had found and killed the last one, who was a Fire Sage initiate, the damage had already been down. Mostly everyone in the countries believed that Sozin had left Roku to die so he could expand the Fire Nation into an empire. Those who knew the truth swore to take it to their graves unless given an opportunity to tell the next Avatar. And so, here we are. Naruto remarked. Precisely, he replied, nodding his head in agreement. But that can't be right. Aang protested. Roku showed me his past. He showed me what Sozin did. Aang, do you remember what I told you on the day of the invasion? Naruto asked him. He did. Flashback. It is because of you that places like the river town you visited became like that. It is because of you that people like Hama have so much hatred. It is because of you that the schools here teach their students to think what they're doing is right and just. It is because of you that men like Zhao are able to get more and more power. This entire war is your fault, yours and that bastard Roku. Naruto told Aang. You're wrong. He shouted, leaping up. This isn't Roku's fault. It's Sozin's. And who told that? I guess Roku himself. Did he show you his past? He nodded. Yes, he did. He showed me what happened and how Sozin started the war. He then noticed Naruto was trembling. Before he could ask what was wrong, the Fire Nation Paragon began to laugh loudly. His laughter echoed through the throne room and the entire palace. What's so funny? He stopped laughing and began to walk away. A little tip for you, Avatar Aang, he said the last part mockingly. Even your past lives can lie to you. End flashback. You can't mean. Aang tried to protest. Roku lied to you. He replied, stopping the air nomad before he could finish the sentence. He showed you memories that made him seem the savior, an eventual victim. But why would he do that? Roku was his past life, and he couldn't see the reason for it. An excellent question, Aang, Jiraiya said. Currently, all we have is pieces of information. What we need is the entire story. He turned his attention to Sud. Could you please start at the beginning? Very observant of you, young one, Sud replied. Hey, I'm not that young. The Toad Sage protested slightly. Compared to me, you are. That's fair enough. He said with a laugh. But please, tell us the entire story. He asked, becoming completely serious again. The old earthbender made himself more comfortable in his chair. The entire story begins long before Roku came around. It actually begins with Kuruk. The pervious avatar from the water tribes? Asked Aang, remembering the man he had asked for advice about Ozai. Yes. After Ko the Face Stealer had stolen his fiancée from him, he spent the rest of his years trying to find a way to take her back. He had asked for the Paragon's help many times, especially the Water Paragon, his twin brother. Each time they refused, telling him that their duty was to watch him, not help him take vengeance on a spirit. Eventually things came to a head. The fire in the hearth sprang upwards and began to cover the wall above it, making everyone, except for Sud and Naruto, surprised. What the? Who is doing that? Jiraiya asked. I am. A voice from a darkened corner spoke. Naruto, Suki and Sokka, having heard the voice before and knew who it belongs to, relaxed. What are you doing here, Saifu? Naruto asked the corner. The spirit came out of the corner, allowing them to see his cloak. I am here at Sud's request. He thought that I would be able to help tell the story. Sokka looked over at Sud. You know Saifu? How is that possible? He asked. The last time the water paragon checked, Saifu only talked to the paragons. I'll get to that. The old earthbender told him. But for now, please turn your attention to the fire. It will show you the past. They all turned their attention to the fire. It began to change colors, until they saw a moving picture in front of them. Noka, please, I'm asking you as your brother. Kuruk begged the water paragon. The two of them stood alone in the hall of the Northern Water Tribe chieftain. It was a big and spacious room, which seemed even more so since they were the only two there. No, you're not. His brother said with hard look on his face. You're asking as the Avatar. The other paragons and I have told you countless times, Kuruk. We are not going to help you attack the face stealer. But it's for Ami. He all but shouted. That doesn't matter. Noka's face softened a little. She's gone, brother. Just accept it already. When did you become so heartless? Ami cared about you, Noka. And I cared for her too. He yelled back, the softness in his face disappearing. Remember, Kuruk, I was there that day. I saw her get pulled into the water. And you were also the one who pulled me out of the water. She was already taken. There was nothing either of us could have done. But we can do something now. No, we cannot. He turned away and began to walk out of the room. This discussion is over, Kuruk. You would be wise to never bring it up again. After that, Avatar Kuruk began to distrust the paragons, even his own brother. Sud said as the flames died down. That distrust lasted the rest of his life and carried over to the next avatar. Why would Kyoshi distrust the paragons? Katara asked. She wouldn't be like that just because of a past life. That is true. But something had happened that allowed the distrust to settle and grow within her. He told her. What happened? The creation of the Dai Li happened. Naruto answered. Indeed, it did. Saifu said. The flames once again covered the wall. What is the meaning of this, Kyoshi? A big, hulking man with the medallion of the Earth Paragon hanging from his chest demanded as he and three others barged into the office where Kyoshi was working. The Avatar looked up from what she was writing at the desk. What are you talking about? She asked them, making it sound like nothing was wrong. We are talking about this group you've created. A woman with black hair down up in a top knot and wearing the medallion of the Fire Paragon said. What in the name of the spirits were you thinking? A man wearing robes of orange and yellow and the medallion of the Air Paragon asked her. Even though he hailed from the Air Nomads, there were no tattoos on his body. I was thinking that I agreed to protect the cultural history of Ba Sing Se. Kyoshi replied, putting the brush in her hand down. And you call creating a group of earthbenders trained to be silent and deadly protecting cultural history? A woman with hair cut short and wearing the medallion of the Water Paragon asked. Yes, I do. That's funny, because we call it you trying to take control of Ba Sing Se. The Fire Paragon accused her with a scowl on her face. I have done no such thing. She instantly protested. Maybe not now, but how about when the power of the Dai Li grows to be too much? The Air Paragon asked. That will never happen. You're right. It will not happen because we will not allow it. The Water Paragon said. What do you mean? She asked with a frown. You have overstepped your boundaries, Kyoshi. The Earth Paragon declared. As such, we are stripping you of your rank as the leader of the Dai Li. We will take command of them. The four paragons turned around and started to exit the room. That is all. You cannot do that. she protested, standing up from her desk. I alone command the Dai Li. You do not have the right. Her calm composure was gone once she had heard their declaration. The water paragon looked back at her. You would do well to watch your tongue, Avatar Kyoshi. She told her. You seem to have forgotten who you are talking to. How dare you? She roared. Her eyes glowed, showing that she was in the Avatar state. The Avatar answers to no one. She leapt over the desk and at them. The four of them turned to look at her as one, and their eyes glowed black. They cut the connection between Kyoshi and the Avatar, making the glow from her eyes disappear and catching her off guard. She was sent flying through the wall, courtesy of the Earth Paragon's sledgehammer, and crashed out onto the training ground. She tried to get back up, but the shaft of the sledgehammer was pushed into her back and forcing her back to the ground. How dare we? How dare you? The Air Paragon said as they stood over her. You forget your place, Kyoshi. The Fire Paragon shouted at her. You do answer to someone. You answer to us. We were going to let you off with a warning and strip you of your command. But I guess harsher punishment is in order. The Water Paragon said. Agreed, the Earth Paragon replied. He turned to the Avatar on the ground. Avatar Kyoshi, you will be sent to your birthplace in exile. You shall remain there until we decide to let you leave. If you try to leave before we say, you will be killed. Is that understood? Yes, it is. Kyoshi said weakly. Only then did she realize that the Dai Li who were training on the field had seen everything. Kyoshi then spent the next 40 years at her birthplace. Sud said, the flames once again dying down. During this time, she communicated with Kuruk and inherited his distrust of the Paragons. The distrust grew and she began to see the Paragons as obstacles to true peace. When she was allowed to leave the island, she began to silently feud with them. She would slip away from their sight and the sight of people loyal to them. She created the scholars of the Avatar, the loyal fanatics who ensured that any writing that had the Avatar be despicable was destroyed and replaced, even if it wasn't true. She also began to discreetly arrange the deaths of the Paragons during her life. She had them look like accidents, but only a few had actually worked. But how does this relate to the colonies? Aang asked. So far, all he was seeing how two of the past avatars didn't like the Paragons. Be patient, I'm getting there. After Kyoshi had died and Roku learned he was the avatar after her, he went on his training journey. But meanwhile, something had happened to Sozin. The fire once again flared up. Sozin was walking along the beach on Ember Island beneath his father's beach house. It had been 2 years since Roku had left. Since he had turned 18, his father had been set on seeing him married. He had met with several different women his age, but they were all interested being the wife of the soon-to-be Fire Lord, not in him. He had finally gotten away by asking his father to allow him to go to Ember Island so that he could think over the women in quiet. But he couldn't think of one he would want to marry. He knew that the marriage would be political, and so he could only hope that he would grow to love the woman who would be his wife. He took to taking long walks on the beach to think things over. I can't choose any of them, he thought to himself. I know that father and mother loved each other when mother was alive, but I don't know if I'll be so lucky. That was when he noticed a body lying on the shore. He raced over to it and saw that it was a woman about his age with pale skin and hair black as night. He then noticed that she wasn't breathing. As he began to try and resuscitate her, his guards, who were standing at the path leading to the house, took notice of what he was doing and quickly ran over. Prince Sozin, what is the matter? One of the guards asked. As he asked this, the girl began to hack and cough, spitting out seawater. Take her back to the house, and have the physician look at her, he ordered. Yes, Your Highness. The other guard picked her up and the two raced up to the house. Location, beach house. Sozin sat outside the room where the woman was. It had been over 4 hours since she was brought in, and he was getting nervous. Finally, the door opened and the physician walked. "Is she all right?" he asked, standing up. "Yes, Prince Sozin. She has been instructed to get plenty of rest and to take it slowly," the physician answered. "You mean she's awake? May I go in and see her?" "Yes, you may." He walked in and saw her sitting up in the bed. "Are you the one who saved me?" she asked, her black eyes staring straight at him. "Yeah, I am," he answered nervously. He had never been nervous before with a woman, so it was strange that she could make him like that. She bowed her head. "Thank you. My name is Satsuki Uchiha. My name is Sozin, Prince of the Fire Nation." "So, I've heard," she remarked sarcastically, but with a smile. He couldn't help but smile in return. As Satsuki recovered, the two of them talked about a great many things. Sud said. He told her about the countries and their history. She told him about the war that the clans had been fighting, which her clan, led by her brother, Taijima Uchiha, was a part of. But she had also told him many stories and legends. Soon, they began to fall in love with each other, and 4 years after he had saved her, Sozin and Satsuki were married. "That's great and all, but what does this have to do with the colonies?" Azula asked. When Sozin heard of the war in her country that seemed to stretch back into faded history, he grew scared. Saifu told her. That would make some sense. Jiraiya mused. A future ruler would be scared of a war. But the war was on the other side of the planet. Sozin wasn't scared of the war coming to the bending countries. Sud explained. He was scared that a similar war would break out within the countries. The mere thought of a war spreading through the 4 countries that turned everyone against each other terrified him to the bone. "But that's what I'm here for, to prevent such wars from happening," Aang protested. It was his job as the Avatar to do such things. He knew that. He also knew that if the Avatar was killed, the war would continue, and by the time the next Avatar was ready, it would have been too late. The countries would have been too steeped in hatred and revenge. So, Sozin came up with a plan to unify the countries. "By attacking them first, we know that already," Katara said. "And that's where you would be wrong, young lady," the old earthbender told her. Sozin planned to unify the countries peacefully. During the 2 years before he became Fire Lord, he traveled the countries and talked to many people in power as well as the Order of the White Lotus. He knew that the Order existed? Zuko asked, a little surprised to hear that. He was a member and a high-ranking one. He brought his cause for worry to the table, and they agreed with him. When they debated on how to possibly unify the countries, he suggested an experiment. They would establish a series of colonies along the coast of the Earth Kingdom. People from each of the 4 countries would be welcome. Each of the colonies would host a different form of government, a monarchy, a theocracy, a bureaucracy, etc., to see which one would be best suited for ruling a colony of different people. How well did it work? Suki asked. Quite well, actually, he answered. The colonies flourished and trade began to rise between them and the other countries. Sozin and the other members of the project were happy with the results and wanted to try to establish more colonies. But some of the members wanted the Avatar's blessing on the project. And since Sozin was friends with him, he was designated to ask. I remember that. Roku showed me his wedding day. Aang said. What you saw and what actually occurred were completely different. The fire rose up again. What's on your mind? Roku asked Sozin as they walked away from the wedding banquet. He had just gotten married and was still having a hard time believing he had just married the girl he'd been in love with since childhood. Roku, there is something that's been going on for a couple of years now. Sozin said with complete seriousness. Sozin, it's my wedding. Please, let's put all affairs of state off until tomorrow. The Avatar urged his friend. I know it's your wedding, but please hear me out. Okay. What's on your mind? In the past couple of years, I have been a part of a group that created an experiment regarding the countries. The Fire Lord explained. We've created a series of colonies that welcome all 4 nationalities. What? He asked, shocked to hear this. They've been doing more successful than we originally thought. We want to build more colonies to get more data, and some of the members think it would be best to have your blessing before we continue. No. You do not have my blessing. He shouted. As a matter of fact, I want those other colonies gone. What? But why? Sozin asked him, completely stunned by what he was hearing. He would have thought his friend would agree and support the experiment. The 4 countries are supposed to be just that 4. Roku, please consider the possibilities. There are no possibilities. I want those colonies gone. He walked away from his friend. So did he? Sokka asked as the fire died down again. After informing the other members of what Roku told them, it was put to a vote. The majority voted to keep the colonies. However, a compromise was also made. All but 3 of the colonies were to be shut down. The process was slow. They knew that if they rushed it, it would have probably damaged the economy. Sud told him. I take it the 3 colonies that were to be left alone were Yudao, Kozan, and Akawan? Zuko asked. Yes, they were. And the day Roku found out about the colonies? Aang asked. Again, that day went differently than what Roku showed you. He turned his attention to the fire and the others did as well. I have seen the colonies, Sozin. Roku said as he stormed into the throne room, fury showing in every step he took. How dare you occupy Earth Kingdom territory? Roku, those colonies are for everyone from the 4 countries. The Fire Nation is not occupying the Earth Kingdom. Sozin told him from where he sat on the throne, above the Avatar. Then why did I see a Fire Nation flag hanging from the walls over an insignia of the Earth Kingdom? It was a day of celebration. Don't you remember? They were celebrating the day of my coronation. I don't want to hear excuses. Roku roared. I ordered those colonies to be gone. That is not your decision, Roku. The Fire Lord shouted back, angry with his friend for not seeing how delicate this kind of thing was. This experiment was created with the consensus from all 4 countries. To have it completely destroyed would be damaging to the entire economy and trade system. You forget your place, Fire Lord Sozin. He told his former friend before going into the Avatar state. He bent the air around him into a giant sphere and destroyed the throne room, along with a good portion of the royal palace. Sozin was thrown to the ground by the wind, and when he looked up, he saw Roku standing over him. I will spare you, Sozin, in the name of our past friendship. But I warn you, even a single step out of line will result in your permanent end. He threatened. Then allow me to give you a warning. Satsuki said from behind the Avatar, holding a kunai to his throat and her Sharingan in full effect. If you threaten our family again, I will not care if you are the Avatar, or if you are Sozin's friend, I will kill you, and leave your dead carcass to rot in the street. Is that understood? The Avatar's eyes were wide as he felt the metal press against his neck. Satsuki, please, let him go. Sozin said to her. Roku was still his friend. She looked at him for a long second, and then nodded. She withdrew the kunai and walked over to Sozin, helping him back up. After he was back up on his feet, she turned to look at the Avatar. Get out of our home, she ordered. Roku didn't say anything, he just turned and left. I take it didn't end there? Jiraiya asked as the flames died down. No, it didn't. Saifu answered. When the paragons of that time heard what he had done, they all went to him. They told him that just because an avatar could support or revoke something a single leader had created, it did not mean he could do the same to something the 4 countries had agreed to or threaten one of them in their own house. As punishment, they exiled Roku to his home island. He stayed there for 5 years. Sud continued where the spirit stopped, during which he communicated with Kyoshi and Kuruk. Their distrust of the paragons took hold in him, and he believed that they were restricting the Avatar and by doing so, putting the entire bending countries at risk. He believed they had to be eliminated. Eliminated? What do you mean? Aang asked. What do you think he means, Aang? Naruto asked back. The air nomad's eyes went wide when he figured it out. Sud nodded at Naruto. By the time Roku was allowed to leave the island, the changing of the guard was occurring with the paragons. Apprentices were taking on the mantle of paragons and their teachers retired. Roku used that to his advantage. He turned the public opinion against them by saying they were young and prone to being led away from the right path. Aided by the scholars, people began to believe him. But no matter what he did, the new paragons, along with the government of the 4 countries, staunchly refused to budge on the matter of the 3 colonies. After 15 years of arguing over it, he decided to take steps. He killed them, didn't he? Zuko asked quietly. Somehow, he knew that had happened. Not all of them. Roku pretended to consider the benefits of the colonies. The earth, fire, and water paragons offered to take him to Yudao, and he accepted. While they toured the city, he discreetly started a fire that wouldn't go ablaze until that night. As they evacuated the city, he led them deeper into the city, saying he thought there were more people trapped. When he led them deep enough, where no one else could see them, he murdered both the paragon of the Fire Nation and the paragon of the Earth Kingdom. Later on, he would claim that the paragons had started the fire in order to kill him, and the leaders of Yudao had agreed with them. It was then that people began to see the colonies in a negative light. What happened to the water paragon? Katara asked, concerned. She ran. And as the sole witness to what Roku had done, she knew that he would try to hunt her down. So, after she sent word the air paragon to keep away from him, she went into hiding, inside the Fire Nation. Why would she do that? Azula asked. Wouldn't it have been easier to hide in the northern or southern water tribe? He shook his head. No, she knew that was where he would look first. She also figured that he'd never suspect that she hides in his own country. It worked. We came by the place where she was hiding. Sokka said. We did. Where was that? Toph asked. She would have thought they would remember doing that, and yet, nothing came to mind that showed her they went anywhere near the water paragon's hiding place. It was the river town. He told her. She was the painted lady. Yes, that was what she was masquerading as when Sozin and I, along with Gyatso and Satsuki, found her, 5 years later. Sud told them. We had our suspicions about what Roku had told us about that fire. But when she told us the truth, any remnants of friendship any of us had with him were gone. Were those 2 paragons close to you? Suki asked quietly. His eyes started to brim with tears. When he wiped them away, he could only nod in the positive. Your predecessor, Suki, was Sud's youngest sister. Saifu told her, saying what the old earthbender couldn't. And the previous paragon of the Fire Nation was Sozin's eldest son. Wait, I thought Azulon was Sozin's eldest son. Azula said. She had read her family history enough times to remember that. No, he was their second son. He had the written history changed so that his brother never existed after he took the throne. The eldest was not a firebender and by an ancient law, could not be in line for the throne. Both Sozin and Satsuki were in the midst of fighting the law when the previous fire paragon offered to take him as an apprentice. When Azulon was born, Satsuki died in childbirth, leaving a strained relationship between father and son. Sud explained, managing to get control of his emotions back. As fascinating as that is, Jiraiya said. We're far more concerned with what Sozin did when he learned what Roku did to his firstborn. What do you think we did? The old earthbender asked him. We were absolutely furious. Roku had crossed a line when he murdered them, even more so due to the fact he knew exactly who they were. We began planning on killing him. We asked for the Water Paragon's help, but she refused. She was scared for her life, but we couldn't blame her. She did, however, summon Saifu so we could ask him for help. And I accepted. Saifu continued. I too was furious at Roku. Together, the three of us hashed out a plan to kill him. Eventually, we came up with one that made his death look like an unfortunate accident. An unfortunate accident? Repeated Aang. Did you really think that the volcanoes on Roku's island just erupted for no reason? I caused it, he said as the flames grew once more. Don't breathe the toxic gas, Roku told Sozin as they ran down the second volcano. He used his air bending to blow away the gas every time they erupted close to them. But he wasn't expecting to get a full blast of the gas straight in his face. As he began to cough, his vision began to blur and the strength in his legs disappeared, making him collapse. Sozin, please, help me, he begged weakly. Sozin just looked at him. Perhaps it is better that you die this way. He finally spoke, his voice filling with disdain. What? The original plan was for me to kill you once the volcanoes were dealt with, he told the dying avatar. But this, it seems more authentic. You were planning to kill me? Roku asked, still shocked by those words. Not just me. There were others. Why? I thought we were friends, he protested weakly. Sozin's expression hardened into anger and rage when he heard those words. You should have thought of that before you murdered my boy. It had to be done. The Paragons are restricting the Avatar. And I suppose the colonies were an excuse? They shouldn't exist. They fly in everything the bending countries have stood for in countless years. He raised his voice when he spoke. Normally, it would have sounded like a roar when he did that, but now, it just sounded like a wheeze. Then perhaps it's time for such things to change. Sozin's dragon landed behind him, and the Fire Lord climbed aboard. Goodbye, old friend, he said, spitting out the last two words like they were disgusting. Disgusting. I hope your next life will be more willingly to listen. He flew off, leaving Roku to die. For what he did, Sozin voluntarily left the White Lotus afterwards. Sud said as the fire died down. I take it things didn't go that smoothly after he did that? Jiraiya asked him. Of course, they didn't. The scholars had the word spread that Roku thought the colonies had to go, that they were a bad idea. Some of them got into offices of power and began to use that influence on the countries, using the fire in Yudao as an example. Soon, people stopped coming to the colonies and then, people started to leave. But the majority of the people, both Fire Nation and Earth Kingdom, stayed. Soon, it had escalated to the point where armed forces of the Earth Kingdom and the Water Tribes had descended onto the colonies, intent on removing them by force. Sozin had forces sent to the colonies to defend them and ensured that the conflict remained in deadlock. And while all that happened, you, Sozin, and Gyatso were hunting down the scholars. Zuko said, making the connections. He nodded. They were the ones who kept the situation about the colonies heated. We felt that if they were eliminated, people would calm down and allow peace talks to begin. All the while, we waited for the new Avatar to grow up. You were waiting on me? Aang asked. Yes. The idea was that once you were old enough, the remaining Paragons, Sozin, Gyatso, and I would sit down and talk to you. We were going to explain what was happening with the colonies and see if we could convince you to the benefits of them. But complications arose. You mean when the monks told me who I was when I was 12? Indeed. We all agreed to meet with you early because of that. Sozin and Satsuki decided to meet with you first. However, they arrived the day after you ran away. And so Sozin wiped out the air nomads to find me? He asked in a snarky tone of voice. Sud's gaze hardened at those words. Were you there when it happened? No. Then I suggest you do not speak about things you do not know. When the two had arrived at the Southern Air Temple, they were immediately confronted by Tashi. The Avatar knew who that was almost instantly. You mean the monk who was always grumpy? He asked for confirmation. Yes. We had later discovered that he was secretly a scholar and believed that Sozin and Satsuki had come to kill you. He had whipped the entire temple up into a frenzy using this fact. It was aided by the fact you were missing. The only person who spoke out against this was Gyatso, but no one listened. Tashi and a group of the monks attacked Sozin and his wife, knocking them unconscious. They would have been killed had their armed escort fought back and got them to the ship. It had happened at the other 3 temples. What? Sozin was always a practical man. He had sent envoys to the Eastern, Western, and Northern Air Temples in case you weren't at the Southern Air Temple. He went there because Gyatso was a friend. What any of us didn't know was that each temple had a scholar in a position of power, and they used that power to incite fear of the Fire Nation within the temples. When the envoys arrived, the monks tried to kill them. But an event turned the favor to the Fire Nation. The comet, Zuko said. It would have been the only thing to make a change in the fight he was hearing about. Yes. With the comet empowering them, the armed forces that went the envoys and Sozin began to slaughter the air nomads in droves. By the time the comet had passed, the air nomads were all but extinct. But when Sozin came to and learned what had happened, he was furious. He didn't want the genocide to happen. He severely punished the soldiers who were in the escorts for committing such horrible crimes, but the damage had already been done. The fire once again rose up. Sozin, what happened? A younger Sud asked the Fire Lord as the two of them stood in the newly rebuilt throne room of the Fire Lord. It was a bigger and a more dramatic one than the previous, and if the timing wasn't so urgent, he would have thought the designer had gone slightly overboard. One of the monks attacked me and my wife. We were knocked unconscious. Sozin replied, sitting on the throne and looking down at the earthbender. By the time we came to, it had been too late. By the spirits, do you realize what's going to happen? He nodded solemnly. Whatever scholars remain will turn it against me. They'll say I wiped out the air nomads just to get rid of the Avatar. It's already beginning to spread. It's been the only talk I've heard coming here from the Earth Kingdom. He looked the Fire Lord in the eye. Did you kill the Avatar? Sozin shook his head. No, I found Gyatso as he was dying. He told me that the Avatar had run away. What are you going to do then? Sud asked him. I will do everything in my power to find him. Do you even know the kid's name? Gyatso managed to tell me his name was Aang. That had been all the monk had managed to tell him, but he would use it as best he could. You know it will be difficult to find him. Because of what happened, the Earth Kingdom and Water Tribes think you're going to attack them next. I will continue to protect my people. He gave an exhausted sigh. You know, Sud, this was all so simple once. We were on our way to unifying the countries, then Roku told us no, and we ignored him. So he killed our family and we murdered him in response. Now, the rest of the countries think the Fire Nation wants to create an empire. What will you do? The Earthbender asked him. Whatever it takes to protect my people, he answered shortly. And if that means attacking the Water Tribes or the Earth Kingdom, then so be it. They fell silent as what Sozin said filled the room. This will probably be the last time we see each other, won't it? Sud asked. It is most likely. Sozin agreed quietly. I'm sorry it had to come to this. So am I. He turned around and walked out of the room. Goodbye, Sozin. Goodbye, Sud. I hope we meet in better times. I never saw Sozin after that day. Sud told them as the fire died down. He had spent the rest of his life either looking for the Avatar or protecting the colonies. Eventually his second son, Azulon, became Fire Lord. He was the one who actually believed it was the Fire Nation's destiny to rule over the rest of the Bending countries and began to actively attack the Earth Kingdom and Water Tribes. And so you know how the war really started. Saifu said. The question now, Avatar, is what will you do? What do you mean, what will I do? Aang asked, still a little stunned at all the things he had just learned. Sud has held his silence about the truth for a century so he could tell you it. Will you let the history known by people today continue to flourish? Or will you let the truth be heard and denounce your past life in the process? I don't know. He admitted. I need to think it over. When you say that, Aang, do you mean meditate and ask Roku if it's true? Sokka asked. No. I need to think over by myself. The 100 Years' Wars was caused by mistrust of the colonies. Now the same scenario is happening again. I need to think about it. Very well, I'll let all of you go now. Sud said. They stood up and bowed to him. Goodbye, Sud. I hope we meet again. The Avatar told him. He was genuinely glad to have such a moment, even if it had come with life-changing news. You probably won't. He said as he watched them leave the room. Are you satisfied now? Saifu asked him once the two of them were alone in the room. Yes, I am. The Avatar finally knows what the truth is. Maybe now, things will turn out different. You held on for this long just to tell him the truth. Now that it's done, you won't live long now. I know. But I welcome death. It'll give me a chance to see my friends again. The spirit shook his head in amusement. After living for a century, I guess you'd want that. He stepped back into the corner and began to disappear. Goodbye. Sud. Goodbye, Saifu. I'll see you around sometime. Location, Royal Palace. They joined up again in the afternoon, meeting again in the throne room. Has something happened? Kay asked as they gather around. To him, it looked like they had gotten little to no sleep. Our apologies, Earth King Kay, Zuko said. But last night, we had learned how the war actually started and it concerns the colonies. Right now, we're in the same situation and we have spent the night thinking about over this. He remembered the previous night and morning. Some of them tried to go to sleep, but most just stayed up and thought things over. In the morning, they all joined at the Jasmine Dragon and sat in silence over tea. What have you decided? We haven't. Aang said. I don't know what to think. I know that most of the colonies have been there for a long time, but there's another piece of me that still believes that they should be gone. You still believe that? After what we were told last night? Asked Azula, getting angry over the fact that the Avatar hadn't changed his mind. If I may say something, Naruto spoke up, cutting off the fight that was about to begin. I think I have a solution. What would that be, Lord Naruto? Kay asked him, curiosity filling his voice and eyes. He walked over to the map that hung beside the throne. It seemed to me that it was either one of two choices. Either the colonies had to go or they stayed. Personally, I've lived in some of those colonies, I think they should stay. But what I suggest is on how they stay. What are you talking about, Naruto? Suki asked him. History has said that in one way or another, Sozin was trying to unify the countries. What I'm suggesting is that we do something a little different but exactly the same. And what would that be? The Earth King asked. The Bending countries have always been 4 countries. So, what we do is simple, we create a 5th country. The blonde declared, facing them all. The others just stared at him in surprise. Simplistic, idealistic, and potentially problematic, Jiraiya said before sporting a big grin. I like it. But where would the borders be? Katara asked. The borders of the colonies are along here. Naruto said, tracing the borders across the map. Those would be the borders of the new country. But that's a good portion of the Earth Kingdom. Kay protested when he saw where those borders were. No offense, Your Majesty, but the Earth Kingdom is the largest out of all 4 countries. The Fire Paragon pointed out to him. I think it is okay to lose some of it for a new country. Yes, you do have a point. Then let's get down to discussing what we'll do. Location, Jasmine Dragon. The meeting had gone through the afternoon, making them walk back to the Jasmine Dragon as the sun went down. That was a great idea, Naruto. Sokka told him as they walked through the door. I don't think any of us would have thought of creating a 5th country. You know me. I tend to think outside the box. He replied with a grin on his face. You and the box were never acquainted with each other in the first place. Azula remarked. He turned to her. I'm going to take that as a compliment. Good, because I meant it as one, she said with a smirk. He just pulled her into a kiss. Ugh, could you two do that when you're alone, please? Toph asked. What's the matter, Toph? You've never thought of finding a boyfriend? Naruto asked after he broke the kiss, and looked at the blind earthbender. No way, I'm gonna stay single if I have to go through all of that. Oh, you'll learn. If she could see, she would have rolled her eyes. Instead, she shrugged her shoulders. Whatever. By the way, Aang, Sokka asked, changing the subject. What are you going to do about your fan club? What do you mean? The air nomad asked. Come on, they were all but swarming us as we tried to get back here. You might need to change that into something better. They're not all that bad. He protested. Aang, do you remember what a fangirl will do you every chance she gets? Naruto asked. That fan club of yours is very close to doing that if you don't fix. Look, I know that rape is bad, but how bad can it be? How bad can it be? Do you not realize what you're... He trailed off as he looked at the airbender. Do you even know what rape is? No, not really, he answered. I figured it was something bad going by the looks on everyone's faces. Did the monks give the talk before you ran away? The blonde asked him. What talk? He asked, clearly confused. Oh, this is just too perfect to pass up. Naruto said with a grin and a cruel gleam in his eyes. I finally have a way to punish you for all the stupid things you've done after you got out of the iceberg. What are you talking about? He asked, becoming more and more nervous. Oh, Jiraiya, the paragon of the Fire Nation called out in a sing-song voice. What is it, Gaki? Jiraiya asked, looking from the Pai Sho table as he and Iroh were about to start a game. This poor kid here has not been instructed in the adults. He said, placing his hand on Aang's shoulder. Could you find it in your heart to educate him? It is his duty as the Avatar to know such things. Sure, not a problem, he answered as he caught on to what the blonde meant, standing up from the table. Please be descriptive in your explanations. And by all means, use your books for help. All right then, I will. Come on, Aang. He motioned the Avatar to follow him as he walked towards the back. Oh, okay, I'm coming. The air nomad said, going after him. Aang, I don't think you should go with him. Katara told him. She had a bad feeling about this. Relax, Katara, it's only a lesson. He told her with an easy grin on his face. What could be so bad about that? The sounds of Aang screaming and begging Jiraiya to stop from behind a locked door echoed throughout the tea shop. Music to my ears, Naruto said cheerfully as he sat on a windowsill, smoking a cigarette. You're a cruel person. Zuko accused him. After reading and seeing every stupid thing he's done, this is what he deserves. Can you blame me for doing that? Surprisingly, no one could. Chapter 47, Going Away and Returning. Location, Ba Sing Se. Naruto walked into the Jasmine Dragon, completely exhausted. It showed in how he walked Kami that was exhausting. He said as he all but collapsed into a chair at a table. What's the matter? You went on a walk, Jiraiya said from where he sat at the next table. Somehow, the fangirls have found out where I am. As far as I can tell, they are now migrating towards Ba Sing Se. Ooh, my sympathies, he replied, wincing. He knew how bad that could be for the blonde, having gone through something similar when he was younger. Looks like I'll either need to hide or get out of the city before the rest of them get here. The Fire Paragon said mostly to himself. That would be something he would not look forward to do. Well, there is always the agreement we have. He frowned when he heard those words come from the Toad Sage. Hey, we agreed that only came into effect when the work here was done. Done. And the work was certainly not done. There was still a lot of things to do. It's been a month, Gaki, Jiraiya told him. You've helped tremendously with laying the foundations for this new country, but now the others have taken the lead. If there was ever a time to go, it would be now. And how do you expect me to tell them that? Just leave a note on the table that they'll find the next morning? He asked, knowing full well that Azula would hunt him down if he tried to do something like that. You're not listening, Naruto. I didn't say you couldn't tell them. Look, can we talk about something else, please? He was exhausted and didn't want to have this conversation like this. All right then, let's talk about your book. What about it? He had given his book to the old shinobi, so he could look over what he was writing, and see what he was doing wrong. The way you write, it's, for lack of a better word, stiff. What do you mean? You write like everyone has to be directed in what they're doing. The Toad Sage explained. You don't need to do that. Try writing more loosely. Don't write about every single thing they do. Only write the actions that seem important or necessary. I see. Is there anything else? The blonde asked. He was paying attention to what was being said, as it was good information. Well, you need to do a better job on fleshing out your characters. They are a little one-sided. Try to do some research to help with that. What do you mean, research? Study people, use a characteristic from one person, and then another characteristic from a second person, and put them in the character you think needs. Like the shape of the hair from one woman and the color of hair from another. You know, it figures you'd use women as an example. Jiraiya glared at him. We can always have a spar. Are you feeling up to it? Not without backup, I'm not. He replied instantly. He had learned that lesson fast during that month. We can always get you backup. And we both know that the only two who can help me fight you are in a summit right now. I think we can make an exception. If the two of you are going to spar, please do it outside of my shop. Iroh called from the kitchen. I don't want to renovate this early in its life. They both looked at the kitchen and decided to not tempt the Dragon of the West. The door to the tea shop opened. We're back. Aang called out as he and the rest of the team walked in. So, we heard. Naruto replied, looking back at them. How did the summit go? Pretty well, actually, Sokka said as he sat down next to the blonde. That was smart of you to bring in people from the colonies, Naruto. Well, we are discussing their colonies. He said with a shrug of his shoulders. It's only fair they get a voice. But why didn't you join the summit? Katara asked him. He had only brought in the colonists, and that was it. You guys have it under control. You really don't need me anymore. Don't sound like that, Naruto. Zuko told him. You're making it sound like we're getting rid of you once you've outlived your usefulness. Look, all I had given was the idea and where the borders should have been. The rest of you guys, as well as the Earth King and the colony leaders, can take care of it. So, what will you do? Again, he shrugged his shoulders. Probably finish my book. That'll take some time. Jiraiya remarked. How would you know that? Toph asked him. I am an author and his writing still needs a little work. Actually, it needs a lot of work. All right, I get it. Naruto told him. I'll work on the thing. He was planning to do it anyway, not just leave it alone because he didn't like it anymore. Good to know. What's going on, Naruto? Azula asked, her eyes narrowing in suspicion. He looked at her. What do you mean? You're hiding something from us. You know, there are days when I really hate the fact you're quick on the draw. He said after a moment of silence, admitting to the fact that he was hiding something. Is this another one of your secrets? She demanded, pouncing on his admission. No, it was more like a deal. What happened? Sokka asked. You guys remember I told you that when we had just gotten into Konoha, Jiraiya and I made a deal? They nodded. Well, there was a little more to it. Flashback. How would you like the chance to kill Orochimaru? Jiraiya asked Naruto. He lifted his head up and looked him straight in the eye. Keep talking. It's very straightforward. The Toad Sage explained. The Chunin exams are going to start in a few days, and we have leaked information that you'll be joining. Orochimaru has probably sent in a team under false allegiances. If you join, your first task will be to identify this team. Once that happens, events will occur to make sure only your team, and they reach the final exam. Once that is secured, on the day of the final exam, you will defeat them in a humiliating and possibly embarrassing way, forcing Orochimaru to show himself so he can fix his damaged ego. And then, you'll kill him. And what do I get out of this? The blonde asked once the explanation was done. Once Orochimaru is dead, you and your group will be provided with a means of escape back to the Bending countries. I will join your group so I can assist with the coming of Sozin's comet and the aftermath. What's the catch? He asked after a moment of silence. Why do you think there's a catch? Jiraiya asked back. There's always a catch. He gave a brief laugh. You catch on quick, don't ya, Gaki? What's the catch? He became serious again. Once you're sure that the aftermath of the war is safely dealt with, you will be required to come back to Konoha and help us deal with the Akatsuki. That's fair enough. Very well, we have a deal. End flashback. So that's what has to happen. He told them, finishing the explanation. Now, they all just looked at him in silence. When do you have to leave? Azula asked. He has the limit of 1 year. Jiraiya told her. After that, he will have to go back whether the aftermath has been settled or not. But since it's been more or less settled, right now would probably be the best time for me to go back. Naruto finished. Then I'll go with you. Sokka declared out of nowhere. Akela simply nodded in agreement. But it was the tribesman's response that surprised them. What? Sokka, what are you saying? Katara asked her brother as they all looked at him in shock. Look, he's right. The entire thing with the colonies is well on its way. Most of the people working on this listen to the Earth King, Zuko or Aang now. Don't be so hard on yourself, Sokka. Aang said. People will still listen to you. Not really, I'm still not good at this kind of thing. He said in small protest. Plus, people have a hard time taking me seriously. No, they don't. Yes, they do. I'm just a kid who helped you defeat the Phoenix King. If I was an adult, it might be different, but it's not. Besides, we Paragons have to stick together, right? He said with a goofy grin, looking at Naruto, who nodded once in thanks. If that's true, then I'm coming too. Suki declared, standing up from where she had sat down. There's no way I'm letting the two of you go alone. We'll all go. Aang said. No. Naruto said, cutting off anyone who was about to agree with him. You're staying here, along with Zuko and Katara. He told the air nomad. What? Just because everything is going well, does not mean you can leave. You and Zuko are two of the figureheads on this. If you leave, people will think you've abandoned the entire plan. But that's what they may think if you guys leave too. He shook his head. No, they won't. When people hear or think of this plan, they think of you, Zuko, the Earth King, or the colony leaders. Then why would Katara stay? Firstly, she'll help you prevent the fan club from turning into fangirls. Everyone shuddered at the thought as it was something they didn't want. Secondly, she and Toph will make sure you don't do anything stupid. Don't you have any trust in me? Aang asked with a small look of hurt. Very little, he answered bluntly. It'd be better if you didn't keep trying to do something stupid every 5 minutes. I am not that bad. The Avatar protested. So you admit to doing stupid things? As he tried to protest again, Toph interrupted him. Don't worry about him, Naruto. Katara and I will keep an eye on him. She told the blonde. Good to know. He said in reply. So when we do leave? Azula asked, looking at her boyfriend. I beg your pardon? He asked back, looking at her. Do you really think that I will let you go alone? I'm going, no arguments. He looked at her, and then smiled. I wouldn't have it any other way. Are you sure about this, Azula? Zuko asked her. What about Mai and Ty Lee? Ty Lee is still figuring out what a Kyoshi warrior is all about. She replied. And Mai would rather be at your side than mine nowadays. You don't need to worry, Zuko. Naruto told him. I'll keep her safe. You'd better. Otherwise, you will not enjoy the outcome. Great, now I've been threatened by your mother and your brother. He told Azula with an exasperated sigh. What can I say? They care. I've noticed. Everyone laughed at that. It gave them a sense of normalcy that they felt wasn't around. Ever since the war was over, they didn't go back to the old things, but instead broke new ground. They didn't know what normal felt like, except in these few moments. All right people, that's enough. Jiraiya said. I'm sure everyone has eaten already, so let's all go to bed. Tomorrow we will leave for Konoha. So soon? Asked Katara. Sooner is better than later when it comes to this kind of thing. He told her. And he knew from experience. He's right. Right. Naruto agreed. They could all see his point as well. Aang's group said goodbye and left to go back to their house. Zuko, Iroh, and Jiraiya stayed up a little longer, playing Pai Sho. Azula would join in every few games, but was mostly content to watch. Naruto sat against the window, looking over what he had written so far and making changes to it. Eventually, they went to bed as well. While Zuko, Jiraiya, and Iroh went to their own rooms, Naruto and Azula shared a bed. They had been doing that since after the comet. They hadn't gone any further than that, partly because Naruto refused to take it further. We have plenty of time. He told her. We don't need to rush it. It was also because they didn't want to wake up the next morning and have Jiraiya grill them for details. As they lay in the bed, Azula tried to go to sleep, but she just couldn't. What's on your mind, Azula? Naruto asked, noticing that she hadn't fallen asleep. It's possible we'll die once when we go there, isn't it? She asked. It's been possible that we'll die ever since we got involved in the war. He replied. He didn't want to think about the number of times the Shinigami almost had him every time he went into combat. I know that, but it seemed to be something that never bothered me. I always thought I was unbeatable, but after what happened in Kozan and Ba Sing Se, I started to doubt that. If we're going there to fight against people, those two men from Kozan, we might die. Yeah, we might die. How can you be so casual about it? She asked, rolling over on top of him. Their legs intertwined with each other as they looked into the other's eyes. I'm not casual about it, I'm scared. He told her, placing his hands on her shoulders. I've been scared every time I have gone into a fight or a battlefield. There was always the chance that I might have died on one of those fields, and that terrified me. But I knew that if I let my terror take control, I would end up dead. What are you saying? If you feel afraid, accept that fact, don't deny it. If you're scared that you might die fighting against the Akatsuki, don't let it consume you. Turn it into incentive to win. I'm not afraid of dying, Naruto. She lowered her head until she rested her forehead against his. I'm scared of losing you. And I'm scared of you dying. He replied. I guess that's further incentive for me to win. She didn't reply. She just kissed him. It wasn't a hot or hungry kiss. It was a soft and tender one. He returned it. The two of them just enjoyed the moment. The moment was over when her hands began to trail downwards, and he grabbed them when they tried to go past his waist. No. He told her. You keep saying that, and yet, I don't think he's completely complaining. She told him, moving her leg slightly and making him hiss in controlled frustration. Of course, he's not completely complaining. He growled slightly at her. I have a completely naked girl in my bed. Even if I don't do anything, it's enough to get him half awake. If you took off those shorts, I wouldn't be the only naked person in this bed. She said teasingly. I said no, Azula. She gave an annoyed huff. Why are you like this? I thought you would have jumped at the chance to have this. She gestured at her body. She knew what she had, and she knew he knew as well. What she didn't understand was why he didn't try to have her already. We don't have to do it right away. Personally, I would like to take you on a couple of dates that don't end in disaster before we go there. The night of Zuko's coronation, he had taken her out on another date. It had gone well, until a fangirl had spotted them. Within 5 minutes, every single fangirl of his had converged on the restaurant. They ended up fleeing from the rooftops, with her hanging onto his back, which she considered a perk. She laughed. I guess you have a point. She lowered her head onto his chest. Good night, Naruto. She said, listening to his heartbeat in contentment. Good night, Azula. He said back, wrapping one hand around the small of her back and the back of her head. They closed their eyes and soon fell asleep. The next morning, Aang and the others had come back to the Jasmine Dragon. There, they all had a feast of a breakfast. Jokes were tossed around and a lot of laughing was happening. To the outsider, it looked like a happy breakfast for a group of friends. But those at the table knew differently. They knew it was possibly their last time of seeing each other, so they wanted to make it a good memory. Once they were all done, they walked outside of the tea shop. Everyone who was leaving had packed beforehand. Now family members were hugging each other goodbye. You take care, Sokka. Katara told him as she hugged him tightly. That I can do, Katara, providing I can be allowed to breathe. He replied. Oh right. Sorry. She let go of him, albeit reluctantly. She was scared and nervous, as there was a good chance that she would never see her brother again. Don't worry. He told her, somehow seeing her fear. I'll be back, both me and Suki. I'll see you around, Fire Lord Zuko. Azula told her brother with a slight teasing tone on the last 3 words. They were standing in their own little group, just slightly away from the others. I'll hold you to that promise. He replied, before turning his attention to her boyfriend, who was standing nearby. Naruto. He began. I know. Torture, pain, and suffering will occur if I let anything happen to her. The blonde said, stopping him before he said it. No need worry, Zuko. It won't happen. Good. Because if it did. I know. You'll make me regret it, etc., etc. Are we ready? Jiraiya asked as he stood apart from them, the seal tag out and in his hand. As ready will be, I guess. Sokka said as he, Suki, Akela, Naruto, and Azula joined him. Well then, let's get. Hold on. Toph interrupted him, getting everyone's attention. We've got something coming straight towards us, something strong and fast. Where's it coming from? Aang asked as they stood ready to defend themselves. It's coming down that street. She points off to the side. Within a few seconds, a familiar creature came out of the corner and barreled down the street. It's a Snuffly Wuffly, Naruto declared as the creature stopped in front of them, skidding the last few inches. No, that's a Shirshu, Azula replied. It's the same difference. Naruto, stop insulting my Nyla, the Shirshu's passenger told him, sounding vaguely annoyed with what he said. Hey, you're the one who called him that, June, he replied, looking up at the familiar bounty hunter. What are you doing here, June? Zuko asked her, surprised to see her. I got into Ba Sing Se 2 days ago, she answered, hopping down from Nyla. Last night, I was told to come here. You were told to come here? You? Asked Sokka. Who tells you what to do? You should know who. No, I don't. They didn't have anyone in common, as far as he knew. June, are you saying you've never actually told them who you were? Naruto asked her, sounding like he was surprised. I was too busy trying to take him down, she said, looking straight at Aang. Whatever was in her voice or on her face, it disappeared when she looked at him. Why are you staring at me like that? He asked nervously. She didn't answer. You're still holding that grudge? Naruto asked her, having seen that expression before in one of their talks. Yes, I am, she answered. Why didn't you do anything about it the last time you met him? I was being professional. Now I am not, she answered. The silence that hung around them seemed to conflict with the sounds of the city all around them. Is there anything I can say that'll make you stop before you do something? He asked her. No. He sighed. Go ahead. Before Aang or anyone else could ask what the two of them were talking about, she walked up to the Avatar and slapped him across the face with one hand and then slugged him with the other. As he fell to the ground, everyone else, except for Naruto and Jiraiya, took fighting stances. What do you think you're doing? Katara demanded as she held water at the ready. I gave him what he deserved, she replied calmly. She was still angry, but she also felt a bit better now. I didn't do anything to you, Aang protested as he stood shakily back up. He had not been expecting that 1-2 combo. It's not what you did to me, but to my people. What? I didn't do anything to your people. You abandoned them when you ran away, she shouted, her anger overriding the pleasure she had gained. June, stop and start from the beginning. You're confusing most of the people here, Naruto told her as he stepped in between her and Aang. Do you want me to do the introductions? He asked, seeing that she wouldn't be polite now, or at least her version of polite. If you'd please, she said with a controlled effort. He turned to the others. Guys, this is June, one of the best bounty hunters on this side of the planet, and also the paragon of the air nomads. He introduced everyone to her. To prove his statement, she wordlessly pulled out a paragon medallion. The ancient elemental symbols clear to see by all. Everyone else there was stunned beyond belief. You're one of us? Suki asked as she looked at the bounty hunter. I thought it'd be obvious, considering I'm holding one of these, she replied, jiggling the medallion. But the air nomads were wiped out, Aang protested. Everyone died. Not everyone. My grandfather was the youngest of the paragons at that time, barely an adult. When the attacks came, he and his newly wedded wife fled to the Earth Kingdom. They stayed there in hiding for the rest of their lives. They had a daughter, my mother, who married my father when she was older. She died giving birth to me and my father took me to live with my grandparents. When it came to choosing his student, my grandfather broke one of the original laws of the paragons and trained me. For the first 8 years of my life, I was trained as a paragon, before my father came back and took me with him. Wait, what law? Sokka asked. The first law, take only the student who holds your country in their hearts. Naruto said, reciting the laws. The second law, never take your own blood to learn what you offer. Could you translate that please? The tribesman asked him. How he said it made no sense to him. The second law means that you can't take a member of your own family as your student. Jun's grandfather broke that rule by training Jun. I guess Saifu made an exception that one time. He realized the situation that my grandfather was in. Jun admitted. What does the first rule mean? Suki asked. According to Saifu, our recent predecessors had interpreted it as only take a student from your own country. But doesn't that mean you're breaking that rule? He shook his head. I never really had a teacher until I met Jun and she explained it to me. Also, Saifu had told me that the law actually meant that a person who had the best spirit of a country was the best choice to be a paragon. For example, a person who the most willful and had the most drive would have been the best choice to be the paragon of the Fire Nation. Which describes you perfectly, Azula remarked. Indeed, it does. Iroh agreed, having listened and watched from a distance. In fact, each of you best embodied what your country stands for. You have encountered many different things, and have always adapted to them. He told Sokka. You are just one of many cultures in the Earth Kingdom, and yet, you have never given it up. He told Suki. And you have traveled the 4 countries, finding peace and freedom in what you do. He finished with Jun. Yeah, that's about right. She replied before turning to face Naruto. So why exactly am I going with you? She asked him. Didn't Saifu tell you to? He asked back. He did, but I want a better reason than a spirit telling me I have to. She folded her arms and waited. A thought struck him. Well, the people we're going up against are high-ranking criminals that have big bounties on their heads. Go on. So, if we bring them in, dead or alive depends on the criminal, you'll get the bounty. He explained. With the amount of money you'd get, you would be set for life. All right then, I'm in. She stated, unfolding her arms. That's all it took to convince you? The chance to cash in on bounties? Asked Katara, who was completely stunned by what she had just watched. I told you guys before, she's a businesswoman. Naruto replied. Okay, now that we have one more person and animal joining us, let's go. Jiraiya announced pointedly. Aren't you supposed to be the patient one? Sokka asked him as the group leaving gathered around him. I am being patient. He replied. Being impatient for me is knocking the people going unconscious and then leaving. Jun scoffed. Like you could do that, old man, she told him. Actually, he could. Sokka replied. Sure he can. It was obvious that she didn't believe the tribesman. Jun, where we're going, this old man as you've called him, is a legend. Naruto told her. There's no doubt in my mind that he could beat both you and your Shirshu with ease. A little more respect wouldn't hurt. If you say so, but until I see it, I won't believe it. She said with a shrug of her shoulders. I'll take that. Now let's get a move on. Jiraiya told her. Naruto, make room for the Shirshu. Why do I have to move for him? I said so. Now do it. Fine, I'm doing it. He stepped over to the side and looked at Nyla. Well, come on. He told the Shirshu. It hissed at him and padded up next to him. Yeah, well, I'm not a fan of the arrangements either. If the two of you are done, we're leaving now. The Toad Sage slapped the seal tag onto the ground. The kanji on the tag glowed, and as the others watched on, the group surrounding Jiraiya were engulfed in smoke. When the smoke cleared, they were gone. Location, Konoha. Tsunade was working in her office, looking over some of the paperwork on her desk. Kami, I need a distraction, right? She thought to herself. That was when the door to her office opened and Jiraiya walked in, along with Naruto, Azula, Suki, Sokka, and a girl she didn't recognize. We're back, Jiraiya announced. So, you are. Good timing, she told them before double-checking the number of people in front of her. Where are the others? There are certain events going on that prevent them from joining us, Naruto stated. We're all you have. Who is she? She asked, pointing at June. She's one of us. He put his medallion to emphasize his point. She's also a bounty hunter, so she here for the cash. I see. Now then. We have a few conditions. He interrupted her. Let's hear them, she said after a moment of silence. First, we are our own team. There'll be no breaking us up to work with other teams. Second, we answer only to you or the fucking sadist here. He pointed to Jiraiya. Anybody else tries to order us to do something without either of your authorization, we will not do it. Third, we are here to deal with the Akatsuki and only the Akatsuki. You give us any missions that aren't related to them, we're gone. She shared a brief look with her former teammate before looking back at the rest of them. I have no problems with those conditions. Are there any else? Just one, I am not living in that building, Naruto stated. Excuse me? You know damn well what I'm talking about. You're planning to put me back in that building with the rest of the Konoha 11. It's not happening, got it? And where you live if not there? She asked him. Right now, very few places will allow you to live there, even if you killed Orochimaru. Why am I not surprised? He asked with a scoff. The village was still the same even after he had killed that snake bastard. There is always his parents' house, Jiraiya suggested. It just needs a good cleaning and he'll be fine. If it'll help, Suki and I can take his apartment, Sokka offered. Ino and Hinata showed me Naruto's place once, Suki told the Hokage. It looks big enough for 2 people. Also, Akela can stay down in the common area. Akela nodded in agreement. Fine, you 2 and the wolf can live there, Tsunade said with a small amount of annoyance. What about her? She gestured at June. I'll just find a tavern or a bar, the bounty hunter replied with a shrug. Actually, try camping, June, Naruto told her. Unless we're told otherwise, you need to stay sober. You know I rarely drink, Naruto. All the same, please camp. Nyla would probably enjoy the wild and the new scents. Did you suggest I do something nice to my Shirshu? She asked him after a few moments of silence. Would you rather I go to the window and shout insults down at him? He asked. I can do that. No, I'm just surprised. Hey, I might think that your Shirshu is one ugly creature, and I know the 2 of you don't get along, but that's about it. If the 2 of you are done, Tsunade asked pointedly. I'll give you the day to settle in. Tomorrow, your team begins. Now scram. You heard her, people, Jiraiya said as they started to leave the room. Naruto, wait. He turned back around when he heard the Hokage's voice, and immediately grabbed the bag flying through the air at him. What is that? Azula asked as she looked at the bag. It would have probably been heavy for a civilian, but Naruto held it like it was nothing. It's a portion of the bounty on Orochimaru. Where's the rest? Naruto asked as he opened the bag and quickly looked over the contents. I've got it, as well as the key to your parents' house, Jiraiya told him as he reached into his vest and pulled out a key. Here, I figured you wouldn't want to live in the apartments. He tossed the key at him. He caught it effortlessly. Thanks. He examined the key and saw the small piece of paper attached to it. What's this? He asked as he looked at it. It's the address of your parents' house. He gave the key one last look before putting it away. So, it just needs a good cleaning, is that it? Yes. He turned to look at Tsunade. Lady Hokage, my team and I will see you tomorrow. He turned back around and walked out of the room, the others followed him. The two Sannin remained quiet as the door closed. Well, that went well. Jiraiya noted. If you think so, Tsunade replied. I know so. He didn't object when I told him we were coming to see you, and he didn't hurry the meeting along. I'd like to think those are good signs. And we both know he's here only to do a job. She reminded him. Once the job was done, it was very likely they wouldn't see Naruto again. But we can also hope that he'll warm up to the others. You were planning on sending them on missions with the other teams, right? Of course, I was. What's their first mission? She silently handed him a scroll. He opened it and looked over the contents. This will be interesting. Location, Naruto's group. They walked down the street, passing other people as they did. June rode atop Nyla, which made a little easier to get as people were stepping out of the way of the strange creature. Do you have any idea of where you're going? She asked Naruto. Yeah, I do. I've gone past this address every time I went to the academy when I was younger. He told her. You in the academy they have? Azula asked with a small laugh. I'm sorry, but I can't see you in there. You must have been bored out of your mind. I was. He admitted. But I had also failed 3 times before finally becoming a shinobi. How fascinating, June drily remarked. Can we move on to more important things? Like what? Where we'll be living? Sokka asked sarcastically. I thought we figure all that out. Of course, we did. You and your girlfriend are staying at his old place while he and his girlfriend are going to be living at his parents' place, and meanwhile, I'll be camping out in the woods. That sounds just about right. Azula commented. That reminds me. Naruto said before turning to face Sokka and Suki. If the two of you are going to do the bedroom tango, do it loud enough so it keeps the others up. It'll annoy the heck of them, and will keep me entertained. The others just stared at him in shock. What? Is something wrong? He asked them with an innocent expression on his face. How can you just say something like that out loud? Sokka demanded quietly, trying to make sure no one else in the street heard them. It's easy, you just say it. He replied with a straight face. What's the problem anyway? We all know that you're going to do it. Both of them blushed hard. Well, we weren't going to announce it to the whole street. And I didn't either. I asked you two to do something in a normal tone of voice. Don't even try, you two. Azula said before either Suki or Sokka could speak. You're not going to win this one. Reluctantly, they conceded the point. Ice cream, I got ice cream. A little girl chanted happily as she ran through the street, getting their attention. Sweetie, please slow down. The girl's mother told her as she walked behind her. You'll run into someone. And as if to prove her right, the little girl ran into someone and spilled her ice cream. But she didn't just into anyone. No, she ran right into Naruto, spilling her ice cream onto his half-skirt. The entire street went silent as they looked on. If it had been back in the days when he was a little kid, the people around him would have pounced and beaten him to a bloody pulp. But now, they were afraid that if they tried that now, he would probably kill them. Naruto stood in silence as he looked down at the melting ice cream, his face neutral. Well, this is a predicament. The Kyuubi commented. He silently agreed. One wrong move, and they would have a mob coming after them. My ice cream, the little girl said, still holding the cone. I saved up all my allowance for that. And now it's gone. Tears began to well up in her eyes, threatening to drop. That was very odd. Naruto said aloud. It seems that my clothes have spontaneously grown in appetite. The girl just looked up at him in confusion. You mean to tell me you didn't see my clothes try to reach out and eat the ice cream? He looked around, pretending to make sure they were alone before kneeling down and whispering in her ear. I think the clothes are trying to grow immunity against us. You might want to be careful the next time you have food, they might want it for themselves. She giggled at his words. You're weird. She told him. Was that not in the category of funny? I could have sworn it was when I left this place. The girl laughed. So tell me, what kind of ice cream did my clothes try to eat? The smile she had on vanished. It was 3 scoops. That's all? 3 scoops? He turned to look at her mother, who was watching in silence. Madam, I am disappointed in you. The young lady deserves at least 5 scoops of ice cream. But I can't have any more. I used up all my allowance. The girl protested slightly. Tears were already beginning to form in her eyes as she looked at her cone. Then I will do you one better. He took the bag of money off his shoulder and put it on the ground. He opened it and pulled out a single piece of paper money. Here's 20 Rio. He told her as he handed her the bill. Go buy yourself a sundae. You mean it? She asked, the tears drying up almost instantly. Of course I do. He said with a smile as he stood up. My clothes tried to eat your last one, so it's only fitting that I pay for the next one and make it bigger. Thanks, mister. She cheered with a big smile. Not a problem. You go and enjoy the sundae. She nodded and ran back to her mother. Mommy, did you see what the nice man gave me? She asked, waving the bill in the air. Yes, honey, I did. She looked up at him. Thank you. He shrugged his shoulders. It was nothing. Let's go, guys. He started to walk away, and the others followed. Soon, they left the girl and her mother behind. That was very decent of you, Naruto. Suki said with approval as they walked. Anyone else would have probably just told the kid to watch where she was walking and then left. But he didn't. It was the right thing to do. He replied. If anything, it should swing some people's opinion about you. Azula told him. It never hurt to make people have a good opinion of you. That doesn't matter. He said to her. We are here to do a job, not change what people think of me. Must you be so serious? Sokka asked him. The sooner we're done with the job, the quicker we can go home. He was about to argue the point, but decided against it. I guess we should split up and get settled into where we're living. He stated when they came to a crossroad in the street. We'll be fine. I'm sure the others kept the place clean. Suki assured him. And I have to find a place to camp for the night. How fun, June remarked sarcastically. There's a good spot just outside the hot springs, if you're interested. Naruto offered. She perked up and swung her head over to him. Hot springs? Where? He pointed down one way of the crossroad. If memory serves, it's just down that way. Nyla should be able to smell it. All right, I'm gone. Here's all your cleaning stuff. She pulled the bags holding the cleaning supplies and dropped them on the ground. She urged Nyla on and the Shersha took off. Try not to hit the pedestrians. He called out after her. He wasn't sure if she had heard him or not. The others just watched as their teammates speed away. What was that all about? Azula asked the blonde, looking back at him. June is a connoisseur of hot springs. There's not a hot spring in the Earth Kingdom that she doesn't know about. He explained as he reached over and picked up the bags. Do you two want us help you clean up the house? Suki asked him. Do either of you actually like cleaning up? I know I don't. But I'll do it if it's necessary. Sokka told him. It was called being helpful to your friends, something everyone from the water tribes knew. If you don't want to, then don't. It's more for him, Azula said, pointing at Naruto. Wait, you enjoy cleaning? He asked the blonde. I like to think of it as a form of meditation. He replied. It's kinda soothing, if you begin to enjoy it. It helped him take his mind off things that were bothering him at the moment. You are weird. The tribesman declared. We've already established that. The two of you had better get going. Odds are the others are waiting to surprise me with a party. You love disappointing them, don't you? Suki asked. He answered with a grin. Then we better get through the entire disappointing part. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Both she and Sokka walked off, Akela trailing behind them. They stood briefly in silence as they watched the three disappear into the crowd. You ready to go? Azula asked Naruto, turning to face him. I might as well be. He answered. They walked in a different direction than the others. They walked on in silence. They made their way through the crowd and eventually found the address they were looking for. Why would they have the house up in a tree? She asked as she looked up at the house sitting at the top of the tree. She didn't know how they did it, but she was wondering why, not how at the moment. He shrugged. They wanted privacy? They would have been better off living in the forest. There was a lot more privacy there. Well, it's our place now. He started walking up the stairs and she followed. They reached the top within a minute and approached the door. He placed the bags down on the ground and pulled out the key, placing it into the lock. He unlocked the door and opened it, letting them see the first view of the inside part of the house. The place looked dusty, very dusty. They could see clumps of dust gathering in the corners. It's probably a good thing we got a lot of cleaning supplies. He commented, having bought a lot. I don't think we have enough cleaning supplies. She replied as she looked at the house. Sure, we do. We just need to apply a good amount of elbow grease. And how exactly are we going to do that? He crossed his fingers into a hand seal. Tajukage Bunshin no Jutsu. A vast cloud of smoke consumed them. When it cleared, the surrounding tree branches were covered in Naruto clones. She looked around at all the clones that were either standing beside them or in the tree. Ah, that's how. Alright guys, we've got a house that needs a very good cleaning. Naruto told his clones. Let's get to it. Yes, sir. The clones chorused before charging into the house. It soon became very nosy as they tried to eliminate every single speck of dust in the house. If someone were to pass by, it would have sounded like a war was going on. As they watched what was going on from outside, the original Naruto turned to Azula. Are you going to help, or are you going to stay out here? Are you sure I'm not going to get crushed in there? She asked back. He gave her a look. Azula, they're me. Why would we try and crush our girlfriend? I didn't say anything about try. Come on, you'll be fine. He took her by the hand and led her inside. True to form, the clones didn't try to crush her. They actually tried to be careful around her. That was a little difficult, considering the fact they were essentially purging the house, but they did their best. It took the rest of the day to clean the house. Surprisingly, the furniture was still well intact. I didn't think this stuff would last this long. Azula remarked as she looked at one of the newly cleaned couches. Now that it was free of dust and other whatnot, the couch showed off its dark blue coloring. Say what you will about the lifestyle, but shinobi build to last. Have you seen the village? The original Naruto asked as he directed the clones, standing amongst them like a composer directing music. No need to sound like a smart ass. Just telling the truth, that's all. He turned to one of the clones. How are those deadbolt lock coming? He asked. We'll have them installed on the bathroom door within a half hour. The clone answered before walking away. Why are you installing deadbolt locks on the bathroom door? She asked the original. So I can feel safe as I take a bath or a shower. Or at the very least, so I can have a few seconds to jump out of the window. Please remember, if a fangirl can't break a lock open, they'll break the door open. He had a few experiences with that and he didn't want to have them again. Naruto, you don't have any fangirls here. She reminded him with a pointed expression. They're all over in the bending countries. It never hurts to be safe. He replied. Besides, you would not believe how fast a fangirl club can be created around here, and how long it lasts. Are you speaking from experience? She asked with a raised eyebrow. Oh, Cammy, no, I just knew someone who did have a club. Hey, boss. One of the clones called out. We're moving the baby stuff out of that one room. You got any idea about what we should do with it? Just put it all in a scroll, I'll see if I can find someone who'll buy it. Alright, by the way, we found a safe in that room as well. I'll take a look at it later. The clone nodded and walked away, mostly to do as he was instructed. Baby stuff? Repeated Azula. Yeah, odds are that would have been my room, if things had gone differently. He replied quietly, looking at where that particular clone was going. Are you okay? Of course, I am. I'm not a baby, so I don't need that stuff. If you're sure, I won't press it. She didn't exactly have a stellar family life, so she couldn't argue with him about it. The day continued on as they waged war on the dirty house. Clones would leave to throw things away or to buy new things with the money they had. By the time the sun began to set, they were done. The house looked like it was freshly built, minus all the smells that went with a new house. Once he was sure everything was done, Naruto began to dismiss the clone in groups. Well, we're finally done. He declared as the last group disappeared in a cloud of smoke. That was exhausting. How would you know? Azula asked from where she sat on the dark blue couch. You didn't do any of the work. You just ordered your clones around. They might do the work, but I get the memories of what they did, and that includes the amount of energy they put into it. He collapsed onto another of the couches. Are you going to be all right? Just give me a minute. It had been really tiring work his clones did, and he was getting all of their fatigue. She looked around the house they had just cleaned. We're going to be living here, she said simply. It looked completely different from how it looked when it was abandoned. It looked like someone could actually live in it. Yeah, pretty much, he remarked as he relaxed and let the fatigue fade away. It was a thankfully quick process, one that he had been through many times before. It's odd, but it kind of feels like this is our house, like we could live here for a long time. We've only been in here a day, he commented. Don't you think this could be a house for us? He looked at her. Azula, for me, home is where you are. She scoffed lightly, but with a smile. You are such a flirt. Only with you, he replied with a grin. She stood up from the couch and walked over to the kitchen. I'll see if I can make us some food, would you like to help? I'm sure you can make us something simple. You were banned from the kitchen after you tried something complicated and decided to rush it. She scowled at him. How many times am I going to have to apologize for that? I don't know. You'll have to ask the head chief when we get back. He slowly stood up from the couch. Do you know where the clones put the pots and whatnot? Yes, I was paying attention, she told him with mock exasperation. The pots are to my left, the pans are to my right, and the other stuff is in the shelf above. Good to know. Why don't you take a walk around the village, Naruto? She suggested. He looked straight at her with a flat face. Why would you even suggest something like that? Well, you are going to be here while we do this job. You might as well get used to the place. The flat face disappeared. And leave you all alone by yourself? What kind of boyfriend would I be if I did that? He asked with a half-playful smile. I am quite capable of handling myself, or have you forgotten? She asked flatly. No, trust me, I remember. He had helped train her after all. I'm glad that you do. You know, you're right. I should probably take a walk around Konoha. Actually, I think I have just the place in mind to go. And where would that be? It's just a spot I used to go to, I know a couple of people there. He walked over to the door and opened it. You're sure you'll be fine? He asked, taking a look back at her. Yes, now go already. Or do I have to make you go? She said in a mock-threatening voice. He gave a brief laugh. All right, I'm going. I'll see you in a bit, Azula. He walked through the door and closed it behind him. Hopefully, you won't do anything stupid. She muttered to herself as she worked around the kitchen. Location, Naruto. He walked quietly through the crowds on the street. The setting sun had caused the sky to turn orange. It was a nice shade of the color, but it was just one of those things he absently noticed. Another, he absently noticed that he was walking against the flow of the crowd. Most of the people were heading inward to the village, to their homes or their favorite places to spend time with their friends. But he wasn't heading inward like the rest of them. He was heading outward, to the outskirts of the village. When he finally got clear of the crowd, he made his way to the gate. Hey guys. He said absently to the shinobi on guard duty, leaving before they could even say anything to him. He made his way to a tree, and then walked up it before leaping through the trees. It's been a while. I'd thought this be a little more difficult. He thought to himself as he flew between the branches. It's muscle memory, Kit. The Kyuubi told him. You're taking it slow and it's coming back to you, that's all there is to it. He didn't reply, he just focused on running through the trees. Finally, he had reached his destination. He leapt out of the trees and back onto the ground. It's been a long time since I've been here. He commented as he looked around Training Ground 3. That it has, Gaki. That it has. The fox agreed, albeit with a little sarcasm. Don't even start, Kyuubi. He warned the Biju. He then walked over to the memorial stone and looked at the names in silence. After a few minutes, he lifted his gaze away from the names carved onto the stone. You know, if you're going to spy on me, the least you can do is not be blatantly obvious about it. He said loudly. Silence followed for a brief minute. Then he heard the sound of people landing on the ground behind him. He turned to face who had been following him. Well, I'd like to say this is a surprise. He said to them. But all of us here know it's not. If anything, I'd say it was inevitable. He shrugged his shoulders and let his arms fall down, keeping one of them near his shuriken holster. So, what in the name of Kami do the four of you want? He asked the people in front of him. He didn't know who the fourth person was, but he knew the other three all too well, and that made whoever the fourth person was irrelevant. He knew he was talking to his former team, to Team Kakashi. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.